At the hands of the Archlich, a once prosperous kingdom was reduced to rubble. His legion of the undead showed no mercy, slaughtering every human in their path. They were torn limb from limb without a second thought. Humanity's final bastion, its last remaining defender, was the Empire's legendary swordmaster, Ios. Yet even he, battered and broken, was teetering on the very edge of defeat. However, this epic does not revolve around that fateful night, nor does it follow the tyrannical Archlich. No, this tale belongs to one Damian Hackson, a man shackled to the Archlich's will as his fearsome death knight. He was once an ordinary man, a mortal soul, before the Archlich's vile sorcery enslaved his very being. But just as the Archlich began to relish his blood-soaked victory, a victory forged upon a mountain of corpses, our protagonist shattered the suffocating chains of his master's control. He unleashed a devastating counterassault, piercing the Archlich's core with such force that even his demonic lieutenants were powerless to intervene. For the first time in an eternity, Damian Hawkson acted on his own volition, leaving the Archlich utterly staggered with disbelief. The Dark Lord had believed Damian's consciousness was wiped clean, but as destiny would have it, the Archlich's dark magic never fully purged the humanity from our hero's mind. A fragment of his soul, his true self, had survived. It lay dormant, a prisoner in his own flesh, watching his body commit atrocities, all under the Archlich's twisted command. The demon generals, enraged, launched a furious assault on Damian, only to be utterly annihilated by a single, contemptuous strike from his blade. In a final, desperate gamble, the Archlich unleashed his ultimate power, summoning a legion of undead horrors. The unholy tide swarmed towards Damian, a sea of claws and teeth. Their sole purpose was to extinguish his life, but yet again, it required nothing more than a simple wave of his hand. The entire horde was instantly vaporized into dust and ash. Witnessing this, the Archlich knew his final moments had arrived. He had unwittingly forged a being of such unimaginable power, a monster that could challenge the very gods themselves, to preserve his own wretched existence, a life he didn't truly possess. He tried to reason with Damian, to beg with empty words, but secretly, he knew that even if his pleas fell on deaf ears, he had a final gambit: transfer his soul to a new, unsuspecting host. But Damian would never allow this vile creature to escape justice, not after being forced to murder those he held most dear, to utterly destroy this bag of bones. Damian had engineered a forbidden art, a technique that could obliterate souls. At first, the Archlich scoffed, refusing to believe such power was possible. Still, a sliver of fear compelled him to flee before it was too late. But his time had already run out, because our hero had at last unleashed his ultimate, soul-rending strike. It slammed squarely into the Archlich's skeletal frame. For a tense moment, nothing seemed to happen. A wave of relief washed over the skeletal tyrant. He was convinced that Damian's ultimate technique was a mere bluff. He would soon learn how fatally wrong he was. An excruciating, soul-shattering energy erupted from within, and he exploded on the spot. All that remained was his hollow, empty skull. Even that final piece was contemptuously crushed to dust by Damian's boot. With his vengeance finally achieved, Damian's will to continue living vanished. He had personally slaughtered his own kin while enslaved by that monster. He had butchered them with his own hands, all while his true consciousness watched in silent, helpless agony. The only path to reunite with his lost loved ones was through death itself. With this grim resolve, he ended his own tormented life. But this was not his end. His final prayer was answered, and he awoke once more. The face staring down at him as he regained his senses was his beloved older sister. Our hero believes he must be in the afterlife, gazing upon an angel. The strangest part, however, is that she appears so much younger. She catches him calling her younger and seems quite pleased by the compliment. For a brief moment, she is taken aback. She suspects he is just trying to flatter her, to butter her up, hoping she'll protect him from the wrath of their father's lecture. Being the kind-hearted sister that she is, she vows to shield him from the storm. In her haste, she quickly dashes off toward the family mansion, but not before warning him to come inside, as rain was about to fall. Damian's eyes fall upon the grand estate standing proudly before him, the very same mansion that he had once burned to the ground. He is utterly baffled, unable to comprehend his situation. The only logical explanation he can conjure is that this must be a dream, or perhaps the nightmare he endured was the illusion, the long dream, and he is only now awakened to his true reality. But he is certain he will have his answers very soon. He plucks a sturdy tree branch from the ground and positions himself before a massive boulder. It was time to test his knightly prowess, the same power he wielded as the fearsome Death Knight. He assumes his combat stance, drawing on his past life's knowledge. He strikes the solid rock with nothing but a flimsy tree branch. For an instant, there is only silence. Then, the colossal boulder explodes into 1,000 tiny fragments. This confirms the terrifying truth. What he experienced in the past was no mere nightmare. It was all real. This revelation sends a maniacal laugh bubbling up from his chest. He breaks down, pulling a classic villain's triumphant, laughing pose. He finally collapses to the ground after his fit of laughter. The staggering weight of the truth finally sinks in. What he is experiencing right now is not some fantasy, nor was his horrific past simply a bad dream. He has actually traveled back in time. A realization that shakes him to his very core. Let's rewind and get some context on Damian's younger life. From what Damian could piece together from his memories, he was a complete fool, a disgrace who constantly brought dishonor to his family's noble name. His father never missed a chance to remind him how utterly pathetic and useless of a son he was. A walking disaster whose only contribution was staining the family's reputation. His reckless actions only brought sorrow to everyone around him. He single-handedly crushed his family's future prospects. He even caused their ancestral home and lands to be seized. Because of his uncanny talent for causing shame and destruction, his father ultimately cast him out. Among everyone in his family, the one person who never gave up hope on Damian was his gentle older sister. He could never fathom why she remained so kind and worried about it, especially after he had ruined her life by sabotaging her engagement. Before he was exiled, she gave him a pouch of gold to help him survive. He paused for a moment, then shamefully snatched the pouch from her. He then fled as quickly as his legs could carry him. He couldn't bear to meet her gaze, consumed by his own embarrassment, after abandoning his home and family. The crushing reality of how cursed and pathetic his life was finally hit him. The shame and regret ate away at him, driving him into a deep state of reflection, back in the present. Damian falls to his knees, his mind racing, desperately trying to understand what caused this regression. Yes, he had wished for a chance to atone to his family, but to think his desperate prayers were actually granted, that he truly managed to rewind time, is simply unbelievable. This could only be the work of a divine miracle. He stares down at his own trembling hands, still vibrating from the sheer power of the technique he just performed. The technique is known as wave breaking, a fearsome move that multiplies the force of an impact exponentially. He acquired it after defeating a legendary knight, a man feared as the Castle Wall Destroyer. Suddenly, a familiar voice pierces through his thoughts. It's a worried servant, shouting his name with urgency. The man is clearly carrying some dire news. Otherwise, he never would have dragged his portly frame out here, panting and gasping in a full-blown sprint. Damian recognizes him, but after so many years, he struggles to recall the man's name. Then, the name finally surfaces from the depths of his memory. Victor! Yes, his name is Victor. The servant confirms it and immediately starts to question him, asking why his young master is still dawdling outside, especially after Lady Louise herself came all the way out to get him. According to the frantic servant, the patriarch is absolutely seething with uncontrollable rage right now. Damian, on the other hand, has absolutely no idea what he could have possibly done to ignite his father's fury, but we're just about to find out. Back at the Hassan family estate, the patriarch's rage-filled shouts and furious bellows reverberate throughout the entire mansion. The man is beyond furious. He attempts to strike Damian down on the spot with a wild, improvised attack. Fortunately, Damian evades the blow with inhuman reflexes, all thanks to the honed instincts of a seasoned knight. Just then, his mother and sister burst in, arriving in the absolute nick of time. They desperately grab hold of the enraged patriarch, preventing him from actually tearing Damian to shreds. As it turns out, our protagonist was ejected from a local tavern for causing a huge disturbance. Once again, he had dragged a family name through the mud. The entire town is already gossiping about how the Hassan heir is nothing more than a worthless, troublemaking delinquent. If not for the desperate intervention of his mother and sister, the old man would have likely cracked Damian's skull open right then and there. They both plead, trying to instill some sense into the furious patriarch. Meanwhile, Damian is lost in a moment of deep introspection. He can't even recall the last time he was scolded with such intensity. But now that it is happening again, strangely enough, he feels truly and utterly alive. Let's get some quick introductions out of the way. The enraged old man is Paul Deesburn Hickson, the family head. His mother is the gentle Merlita Hickson, and his sister, his sweet, angelic savior, is Louise Hickson. The scene may be chaotic, but Damian missed this family turmoil more than words can say. Unbidden, tears begin to well up in his eyes. His family can only stare in utter shock and disbelief. Their defiant son, weeping like a child, this is something they have never witnessed before. Even Deesburn's fiery rage cools slightly before he declares the punishment. He grants his son one chance to justify his actions, but Damian offers nothing. No excuses, no attempts to shift the blame. This unexpected response completely stuns his father. As far as his family knew, Damian was an expert at squirming his way out of trouble, but this time, he takes full responsibility for his actions. He openly admits he has disgraced the Hassan family name. It is entirely his fault, and he declares it without shame. Deesburn releases a long, weary sigh. This is not how these confrontations typically unfold. Still, he is not convinced that a small display of sincerity is enough to let his son escape the consequences. With the utmost respect, Damian declares he will atone for his mistakes. He proclaims he will do anything necessary to repair the damage he has caused and to restore the family's sullied honor. And when he has finally succeeded, he will readily accept any punishment his father deems appropriate. This powerful declaration leaves his entire family speechless. He speaks like a completely transformed individual. His father can only wonder if his son hit his head and lost his mind. The scene shifts to the bustling merchant city of Landwork. Victor and Damian stealthily approach the infamous pub. The loyal servant is visibly on edge, his face a mask of apprehension. He's certain this is a terrible idea. Whispers on the street say the pub is run by a dangerous syndicate. If those rumors hold any truth, this could turn very ugly. But Damian, the man who was once the indomitable Death Knight, simply strolls past his terrified servant. He casually tells him he can return to the mansion if he is too afraid. Victor, ever the faithful attendant, vehemently shakes his head. He is bound by duty and would never abandon his master, especially not out of simple fear. Damian calms him, stating they are only there to speak with the pub's owner and to offer a sincere apology for the trouble he caused. He simply wishes to set things right. As he walks forward, he prays that this encounter will unfold as smoothly as he imagines. He doesn't know how or why he was sent back in time, but if some divine entity truly granted him this second chance at life, he swears he will not let it go to waste. If he ever hopes to break the curse of his own destructive nature, he must begin by taking decisive, courageous action. As he arrives before the tavern's main gate, a pair of thugs immediately block his path. They recognize his face instantly and sneer with arrogant aggression. Damian doesn't remember them well. It has been far too long, but their smug faces do seem vaguely familiar. Without matching their aggressive posture, he maintains a calm, measured tone. He informs them that he has returned only to apologize for the disruption he caused during his previous visit. The two thugs are momentarily stunned. They are unsure of how to process his words. When it finally registers, they explode into mocking, derisive laughter. To them, it is absolutely hysterical to witness Damian, the infamous, disgraceful noble heir, suddenly behaving with such politeness and respect. They had always viewed him as the worthless son of a pathetic noble house. But now, they are forced to concede that he doesn't seem so bad. Damian remains perfectly still, silently enduring their mockery. But then, they take it one step too far. They mention his sister and begin spewing vile, disgusting remarks about her. They claim they are willing to accept his apology, but only on the condition that he introduces them to his sister. These disgusting pigs leave no doubt as to their vile character. And in that single instant, this is no longer about an apology. Damian snatches a dagger from one of the thug's belts. Moving so quickly, the man doesn't even notice the blade is gone. Originally, Damian's plan was simply to apologize and depart in peace. But it seems his patience for such scum has its limits. With a single, clean, precise motion, he completely severs the hand of the thug who insulted his sister. The man collapses to his knees, screaming in pure, agonizing pain. Once his brain finally comprehends what just transpired, the other thug immediately brandishes his own sword, though his hand is visibly trembling with fear. Damian's dormant killing intent begins to stir. The soul of the Death Knight, buried deep within him, starts to awaken. And let's not forget about poor Victor cowering in the background, absolutely losing his mind with terror. He is wailing, dreading the bloody outcome that is about to unfold. The agonized screams of the maimed thug quickly draw the attention of onlookers. One man pauses, intrigued by the sudden violence. Another wisely decides to hurry on before he gets entangled in the chaos. The thug, who still possesses both of his hands, tries to menace Damian with a series of empty, pathetic threats. He boasts about the powerful gang he represents, the Black Snake. He snarls that no one ever walks away after crossing the Black Snake. It seems these were not just some ordinary street thugs after all. Even Damian has some vague recollection of this criminal faction. The Black Snake is a notorious organization, currently expanding its iron grip over the city of Landwork. And this very pub is one of their main headquarters. When Damian had complained about their ridiculously overpriced food in the past, the only response he received was a savage, brutal beating. They didn't just beat him, they publicly humiliated him in front of everyone. Now that he recalls this memory, he realizes he is the one who is truly owed an apology, not the other way around. Back to the confrontation. The thug makes it abundantly clear that being a noble will not shield Damian from the brutal retribution he is about to suffer. He finally musters his courage and lunges forward with his sword. Damian simply takes a single step to the side, effortlessly trips the thug, and sends the fool crashing to the ground. Before the man can even recover or get to his feet, Damian is already upon him, dagger poised to strike. This pathetic fool should be grateful he is only about to lose a leg. If it weren't for the sake of his family's honor, erasing this entire gang from existence would be a simple matter. With that chilling threat hanging in the air, Damian severs the thug's leg. The man doubles over, howling in unbearable pain. More thugs pour out, drawn by the escalating screams. They too seem visibly unnerved by the sheer brutality of the scene unfolding before them. Only one of the thugs appears brave enough to stand at the forefront. The rest of them cower timidly behind him. He demands to know which rival organization Damian represents, and where he hails from, obviously. Damian scoffs, denying any connection to a criminal gang. As for his purpose here, he repeats that he only came to apologize. Though, upon further reflection, he now believes he is the one who deserves the apology. He also has a formal complaint to lodge with the pub owner. This arrogant new thug has no interest in entertaining Damian's demands. All they care about is uncovering his identity. And since he refuses to tell them, they fear they'll have to force it out of him. The leader signals his underlings to attack. The foolish thugs charge blindly towards Damian, completely oblivious to the fate that awaits them. Damian can't even be bothered to waste his time on such small fry. He takes a single breath and blinks past them with impossible speed, slicing off hands that were never worthy of wielding blades against him. In a single flash, 3 more thugs are writhing on the ground. Damian stands there, completely unfazed, while the leader of the thugs is frozen in absolute terror. However, that momentary burst of speed has taken a small toll on his young, weaker body. Still, he has more than enough power remaining to deal with the coward before him, and he is more than ready. The bastard starts to grovel for his life. He offers a desperate apology if Damian is willing to show mercy. But it's painfully obvious this sniveling coward will receive no mercy. At least, not until Damian has claimed one of his limbs as a trophy. The scene cuts abruptly to the inside of the pub, which is bustling with patrons and activity. But the cheerful atmosphere dies instantly when everyone sees the whimpering thug, standing frozen with fear at the entrance. The poor fool could not escape his grim fate. As his maimed body topples to the side, Damian stands there, the center of all attention. He casually wipes a splash of blood from his cheek, while the customers, who were enjoying their drinks just moments ago, flee for their very lives. It's a good thing the unnecessary distractions have cleared out, leaving Damian free to settle his business with the pub's owner. The owner stands on an upper balcony, looking down. He seems more annoyed about the commotion than anything else. He bellows, demanding to know where his guards are. This bar owner looks like a comically foolish character, almost like he walked out of a pirate manga. His name is Anderson Home. Damian only adds fuel to the fire by nonchalantly informing him that he has already dealt with the guards Anderson was screaming for. The true gravity of the situation finally dawns on Anderson. It is utterly inconceivable that a single person defeated his Black Snake enforcers. He demands that Damian explain why he is causing such a disturbance and disrupting his legitimate business. And more importantly, he demands to know who he is. Damian announces his full name. Without a hint of hesitation, he clarifies his intentions. He never intended to start a fight. All he desired was a sincere apology from the owner himself. The establishment is grossly overpriced, and he had previously complained. The only response he got then was a humiliating and public beating, before being thrown out like common street trash. Everyone mistook him for the instigator, the troublemaker. This false accusation dealt a heavy blow to his family's honor, and resulted in significant financial losses. Anderson, the arrogant, mustachioed fool, still hasn't grasped the perilous situation he is in. Instead of showing even a hint of remorse, he openly mocks Damian and his entire family. He's heard the rumors that the Hassan Viscountcy has no honor left to defend, a fact that this clownish man finds incredibly amusing. What's even more hilarious to him is that Damian actually came here expecting an apology. It seems our protagonist had already anticipated this exact arrogant response from this worthless man. Initially, he had intended to spare this fool once he received a sincere apology. But now, he has the perfect justification to unleash the brutal revenge he has been craving. He will not forgive this man for speaking ill of his family. In less than a heartbeat, Damian moves with blinding speed. He appears instantly before the man on the upper floor, his dagger aimed directly for the heart. He is ready to spill this arrogant fool's guts on the floor. But it seems our hero got overconfident and lowered his guard. A new figure rushes in, bringing a massive sword down upon Damian. The blow sends him hurtling back to the ground floor. The sheer power behind that single strike is immense. The name of this mysterious newcomer is Ted. He is the very man Anderson had been waiting for to handle the situation. Damian has to admit, this new opponent has some serious skill. With the level of power he's displaying, this gets our hero wondering how someone of Ted's caliber ended up as a hired thug in this dive. Now, he is incredibly curious to learn why a knight of this level is even here. Let's take a moment to discuss the knights of this world, the glorious, honorable warriors who dedicate their entire existence to the path of the sword. A strict hierarchy exists among them. They begin as a simple trainee, then become an apprentice knight. Finally, they achieve the rank of official knight once their skills are proven. Official knights are recognized as true warriors, capable of manifesting and wielding aura. They are considered to be walking natural disasters, able to cleave through dozens of enemies in a single blow. They can even demolish castle walls without breaking a sweat. In essence, the knights in this world are ridiculously powerful. So powerful, in fact, that they are viewed as beings that transcend mortal limits. And that is precisely why the bar owner is standing up there, cackling like a madman, absolutely certain of his inevitable victory. Even though Ted is merely an apprentice knight, he has sworn an oath of loyalty to the leader of the Black Snake Syndicate. With Ted now involved, the bar owner is completely confident that our hero will not be leaving this establishment in one piece. And you can bet your life on that. Damian stands his ground, confidently asking about Ted's official rank. He can now understand why. He sensed a faint trace of aura during their initial clash, but this revelation utterly dumbfounds Ted. He cannot believe that someone as seemingly insignificant as our hero was able to detect his aura, especially when he had tried so hard to conceal its presence. After a moment of thought, Damian deduces the likely reason why Ted would lower himself to work in a wretched place like this. He correctly surmises that Ted was deemed unworthy of becoming an official knight and was unceremoniously expelled from the knightly order, leaving him with nowhere else to turn. This verbal taunt has already pierced the knight's prideful armor, while the bar owner tries to placate him by mentioning his payment. Hearing the shameful title apprentice attached to his rank, Ted's blood begins to boil with rage. Enraged beyond measure, he explodes forward with incredible velocity, aiming to silence the arrogant noble's mouth for good. He intends to punish him severely for his disrespect, but without a single shred of fear. Our hero simply stands his ground as Ted's blade descends upon him. He sidesteps the powerful strike at the very last possible second, which means if he had failed to dodge the attack, the furious apprentice knight would have sliced him clean in two, gearing up for a follow-up assault. The apprentice knight unleashes a flurry of strikes at Damian, while our hero continues to evade with little apparent effort. He's beginning to get a true measure of his opponent's capabilities. For what he can tell, Ted is clearly no ordinary apprentice knight. This is proven by his swordsmanship and the precision of his attacks. Seething with fury, the apprentice knight unleashes a wide, sweeping slash, which is once again easily avoided by the young master. Despite now possessing some of his combat skills from his future life, Damian is beginning to struggle with his body's current physical constraints. He cannot yet bring out his full potential in this state. This serves as a crucial lesson for him to focus on managing his stamina. The apprentice knight is becoming increasingly frustrated that none of his powerful attacks are finding their mark. So this time, he goes all out, imbuing his entire body with a visible aura. Instantly realizing what is about to happen, Damian anticipates his opponent's ultimate hidden technique. The apprentice knight launches a devastating linear sword thrust, charged with an immense amount of power. As the deadly blade is about to impale his body, Damian becomes perfectly calm, even in the face of certain death. He intends to counter with a forbidden technique of his own, one that can successfully neutralize the incoming attack. Recalling his traumatic memories as the infamous Death Knight, he remembers his fateful encounter with a legendary assassin, a man known and feared as the Blade of Death. This assassin was revered as a walking force of nature, so the Death Knight was dispatched to face him. The Phantom Assassin, he immediately leveled his blade at the monstrous knight and declared his intention to kill him if he did not immediately retreat. Realizing that the Death Knight had no intention of backing down, a sinister, bloodthirsty grin spread across the Phantom Assassin's face. The murderous beast was thrilled to have found another worthy opponent to kill. In fact, he wanted to use his secret technique to put on a show. Thanks to his inhumanly perceptive eyes, he was able to analyze the vital points of any living creature, exploiting the very water within their bodies. And then he unleashed his ultimate slicing technique, a move he must have learned from a demon king. He cleaved through the Death Knight's entire body, The most incredible part? He performed this feat with a simple wooden sword, a fact that only showcases the true mastery of his technique. The Death Knight's bisected body fell limply to the ground, while the Phantom Assassin began to celebrate his victory. Little did he know, the Death Knight was not so easily dispatched. In fact, when he turned around, he witnessed his own impending doom. The creature's body was regenerated. Its flesh and organs were knitting themselves back into a single, cohesive form, even after being literally cut in two. Yes, that's because the Death Knight had whipped out his own anti-slicing technique learned from an ancient era, with his body now fully restored. The Phantom Assassin finally realized he had made a fatal mistake. He had targeted an unkillable, undead monster. But here's the truly terrifying part. After experiencing that same technique used upon his own body, Damian instantly mastered it. He was now able to use his own perceptive eyes to target the Phantom Assassin's own vital points. Without even being able to process what was happening, the Death Knight slaughtered the assassin, giving him a taste of his own medicine. It was instant karma, and he did it without even wielding a sword. The maniacal assassin experienced unimaginable, excruciating pain, all the while being unable to comprehend how anyone was able to perfectly copy his secret forbidden technique. And that brings us back to the present moment. A similar expression of shock is now worn by Ted, an expression of utter despair and total defeat. He is now down on the ground, his body not severed in half in such a gruesome fashion, but it has suffered a deep, grievous slash. Our glorious protagonist explains that every single one of his past enemies never even knew what hit them until they were already bleeding out on the ground. All of his battles ended this way. And why? Because his one unique, inherent ability as the Death Knight is to instantly absorb his opponent's skills and make them his own. To put it simply, our boy is out here giving the legendary Copy Ninja a serious run for his money. Seeing Ted defeated in such a spectacular fashion causes the bar owner to become terrified out of his mind. He's up there sweating profusely, certain that he is next on the chopping block. Our boy's got that classic desperate prince of all scions face. Moments later, he is kneeling before our protagonist and desperately apologizing for disgracing the Hassan family name. But it doesn't stop there. He also offers a substantial amount of gold as compensation for all the trouble he has caused. Damian is celebrating internally with this outcome. He only came seeking a simple, heartfelt apology, but now he's walking away with a hefty sum of cash. He decides to let the matter rest and glances over at his servant, Victor, who has silently witnessed the entire shocking scene unfold. The loyal servant quickly steps forward to collect the payment, still questioning his own sanity after what he just witnessed. He watched his young master effortlessly dismantle a trained knight with an impossible technique at the very last second. It makes absolutely no sense to him how the young master suddenly acquired such formidable powers. In the following scene, they're departing from the bar. Victor remarks that he has never had to carry such a large sum of money before. But something tells me the bar owner's story is not yet over, because this vile scumbag is already plotting his future revenge. His true intention is to report this incident to the leader of the Black Snake Syndicate. But just as he is concocting his vengeful scheme, our hero returns to humble him once more by slicing off his right ear. The bar owner screams in pure, unadulterated agony, while Damian coldly reminds him that he could not leave without delivering a more appropriate punishment. Oh, and he has already predicted the bar owner's next move, and he is more than willing to leave a message for the leader of the criminal organization. Damian's only warning is this: if the organization even dares to interfere with his family, he will personally wipe every last one of them from the face of the earth. Even after having his ears severed, he still desires revenge, and he fully intends to report this to the syndicate. But that is a battle for another day as our hero continues on his way. As he departs the scene, he finally and fully accepts the weight of his own sins from his previous life. His former life was a crimson river, carved by slaughter and unforgivable sins. Yet, he has no intention of fleeing from this blood-soaked past, because this time, he swears an oath to be the unwavering shield his family has always needed. With a newfound resolve, Damian proclaims it is time to return to their home. The scene shifts to the formidable Lion Bloom Marquee, where a man is lecturing his brother with a peculiar proverb. Pain is the shadow that forever follows love. His bewildered sibling has no idea what this cryptic nonsense means. He can only assume his brother is preparing to march into yet another war. Dismissing his brother's guess with a smirk, the man clarifies his journey is, in fact, a noble quest to discover love. I might have believed him, if not for the predatory, sinister grin on his face. We now return to the Haxon estate. Our hero is feeling refreshed after a solid night's rest, following his chaotic excursion the night before. The same, however, cannot be said for the traumatized Victor. He was left to endlessly replay the brutal spectacle in his mind. The sheer horror of it all denied him any sleep. He could only agonize over what would happen next. Damian calmly states that the outcome was a complete victory in their favor, so there is no reason for him to be concerned. Though their initial plan may have gone completely off the rails, they managed to achieve their objective nonetheless. Now, our protagonist simply has to wait for the rumors to circulate, allowing everyone in the city to learn not to trifle with the eldest son of Viscount Hack's son. With this new, terrifying reputation, no one will ever have the courage to threaten his family again. He is also pleased that his old moniker of the useless son will finally be shattered and replaced. People will now look upon him with a new, fearful respect. Even his loyal servant, Victor, cannot begin to fathom how his young master suddenly became so assured. The servant remains petrified of the inevitable consequences, specifically from the ruthless Black Snake Syndicate, because their actions last night were nothing short of a declaration of war. Damian utterly humiliated their forces and even destroyed an apprentice knight. Despite this clear and present danger, Damian is confident that they will think twice before making a move against a noble family. But if they are foolish enough to challenge him, he will dismantle every last one of them. This powerful declaration eases some of Victor's fears, and he comments on his master's unbelievable sword mastery, abilities that he should not possibly possess. This forces him to wonder aloud. When did his young master become such a peerless swordsman? Naturally, our hero quickly changes the subject, as he has no logical way to explain his transformation. Damian simply claims that he practices in his spare time. Speaking of Damian, his father suddenly appears, moving with superhuman speed, furious that his son was missing for the entire previous day. Even worse, he's terrified that the boy has already stirred up more trouble. Showing absolutely no fear, Damian urges his father to remain calm. He assures him that he has handled the situation and corrected his past mistakes. He then signals for Victor to reveal the spoils of their victory. The glittering pile of gold coins immediately captivates his parents. It's the quickest and most effective way to win them over. The young master explains that he returned to the infamous tavern, where he managed to resolve a certain misunderstanding, a misjudgment on their part. And because of their error, they gave him this money as compensation. I just find it hilarious how he conveniently left out the part where he severed 20 limbs and sliced off the bar owner's ear. His parents are skeptical at first, but their doubts are quickly erased by the sight of the gold. The funniest part is that Damian then uses Victor as a witness to his story, throwing his loyal servant completely under the bus. In the end, Victor reluctantly confirms everything the young master claimed, which lends more credibility to his outlandish story. This helps to restore his family's trust in him. Damian's parents are overjoyed. Meanwhile, Victor is coming to the horrifying realization that he serves a master, who is a Grandmaster level gaslighter. The scene quickly shifts to our protagonist, sprinting through the fields to test his physical limits. After only a short time, he's completely exhausted and gasping for air. This forces Damian to acknowledge his current weaknesses. He knows he must temper this pathetic body immediately, or he'll be at a fatal disadvantage in the future. He retrieves a purple, glowing vial from his pocket. He is fortunate to have acquired a special item, something that will greatly accelerate his progress. Before he departed from the tavern, the bar owner had included this powerful tonic among the treasures. It is a creation of the legendary Alchemy Academy. It is said to grant a massive boost to one's stamina and physical energy. Damian was shocked to even hear the Academy's famous name. They are master craftsmen of these miraculous potions and elixirs. Their creations are so prized that their value rivals that of rare gemstones. All the better for our young protagonist, who managed to obtain this treasure completely free of charge. Without hesitation, he quickly consumes the entire tonic, and in a matter of seconds, he feels a jolt of raw, electrifying power coursing through his veins. The effects are instantaneous and overwhelming. He crushes the empty vial, realizing that his most critical objective right now is to rebuild his body to its former glory, to once again become the unstoppable Death Knight. The vile Archlich, Dorgos, is fated to unleash his undead legion upon the world, burning everything and everyone to ash. Damian must ensure that this apocalyptic future never comes to pass, no matter what it takes. That is why he is so hell-bent on reclaiming his power. It is the only way he can truly protect everything that is precious to him: his family's safety, their future, their happiness. Re-energized, he sprints off once more, vowing that he will annihilate the Archlich. And this time, he will make absolutely certain that Dorgos stays dead. That same evening, the scene cuts to the Dark Tower of the Black Snake Syndicate. The corpulent leader expresses his deep disappointment in his knight's failure, especially considering the small fortune they invested in hiring it. Ted's injuries are grievously severe, so much so that even the grunts believe he needs immediate medical attention. But the off-brand crime lord over here is completely ruthless and orders Ted to be thrown out with the trash. Meet the boss of the Black Snake Syndicate, Cedric Walker, a man who clearly has no tolerance for failure. He commands his men to dispose of the injured knight immediately. After all, they can always purchase a new warrior to replace him. Summoning the last of his remaining strength, the apprentice knight struggles back to his feet. He bitterly remarks on what a pathetic end this is. Cedric turns around, visibly surprised that the knight is still able to stand. He feigns mercy, offering Ted a second chance if he recovers. But considering he was about to discard him like garbage moments ago, the apprentice knight is filled with rage. He lunges at his former master with his blade. But despite his desperate attempt to assassinate the syndicate's leader, he is instantly stopped by a shadowy tendril. It quickly binds him, rendering him completely powerless. The one responsible for the magic appears and offers to execute the treacherous knight as part of their new contract. Cedric is more than delighted to see how his newest acquisition will perform. The helpless knight can only scream in defiance. The mage begins to chant a dark incantation, unleashing demonic beasts from the shadows upon the defenseless knight. Before the knight can even comprehend the unfolding horror, he meets a truly bone-chilling and gruesome end, despite his desperate pleas for mercy. The 5 demonic beasts devour each of his limbs and his head, tearing his body to pieces as his final screams echo off the walls. By the time it's over, the only thing left of Ted is a single bloody foot. Dude probably suffered one of the most brutal deaths I have ever seen. Cedric is disgusted by the mess, but also thoroughly impressed. He officially welcomes the mage into his organization and requests that future executions be a bit cleaner. The mage is pleased by this and eagerly awaits his next assignment. The leader of the syndicate recounts the recent incident involving a certain noble who dared to challenge his members. However, Cedric has no intention of stopping now. All he desires is for Damian to suffer a painful, agonizing, and gruesome demise, and he's willing to double the payment for it. Cedric pays the mage a hefty commission in advance. The dark mage is more than eager to accept this new contract and carry it out, panting heavily with exhaustion. Our hero continues his grueling training montage. He's out here performing squats with colossal weights on either side, forging his body and dramatically increasing his stamina. This intense training regimen is yielding incredible results. But strangely, the last few days have been far too peaceful. It's an unnerving calm, as if disaster is lurking just around the corner. He was fully anticipating the Black Snake Syndicate to send assassins to hunt him down, just as he is about to take a drink from his water flask. He senses the presence of 2 hidden figures lurking nearby, assuming that they are the Syndicate's worthless assassins. Our hero moves with blinding speed to neutralize the threat. To his complete and utter shock, the person he attacks is not an enemy, but is in fact Abel, his studious younger brother. He immediately releases his grip, causing his younger sibling to collapse onto the ground. Abel is completely awestruck by his older brother's incredible power. For a terrifying moment, he fully expected his head to be crushed. It is a good thing that did not happen. Damian profusely apologizes and offers him a hand up, swearing that he never intended to treat him so violently. Instead of accepting his older brother's heartfelt apology, the scholarly younger brother reveals that he has learned about the incident at the tavern and how he managed to secure an apology from the owner. However, based on the rumors he's heard, he knows that a massive brawl erupted and that dozens were injured. Abel furiously accuses his older brother of deceiving their entire family, instead of denying the accusation. Damian simply confirms that his story is the cult. Hard truth. Abel gets right in his face, completely shocked, demanding to know how on earth his brother managed to defeat so many armed men. It makes no sense unless he hired a legendary assassin or something. Even though Damian fully admits that he was responsible for everything, Abel still refuses to believe him. The only thing that he truly cares about is that his older brother stops going around and disgracing their family's esteemed reputation. They are all exhausted from constantly cleaning up the messes that he has caused in the past. Completely understanding his little brother's frustration, Damian gently pats him on the head. He reflects that his younger brother has always had a pure heart and has only ever wanted what is best for his family. That is why he doesn't feel any annoyance at his attitude. In fact, he gives Abel a reassuring smile, stating that there is nothing for them to worry about any longer. Their conversation is suddenly interrupted by Victor, who arrives, panting, to deliver some incredibly dire news. His sudden and panicked announcement causes both of the young masters to become alert. In the next scene, they rush back to the family estate and burst through the main doors, only to discover their parents sitting across from a certain man. It is the same smug noble from earlier, the one who was embarking on his quest for love, or whatever the hell that was supposed to mean. Seeing Damian's sudden arrival, the arrogant man feigns innocent intentions, claiming he only came to discuss what occurred at the banquet hall. Meet Erwin Lionbloom, the evil, discount version of Erwin from Attack on Titan. Unfortunately, he shares a dark and troubled history with our protagonist. To truly grasp the animosity between them, we must once again journey back into the past. At the banquet hall, he and Erwin had a major confrontation. Apparently, Damian had taken offense to something he said, while the cool and composed Erwin only provoked him further. The drunk and belligerent Damian reminded everyone that Erwin had insulted his sister and had also spoken ill of him. Therefore, he had every right to be enraged. Then again, the clever Erwin took full advantage of our hero's drunken state and used it to pin all of the blame on him, to make the situation even worse. This vile creature got right in his face and called him an imbecile, and reminded him that even if he did say all of those things, Damian was too weak to do a single thing about it. This was a devastating blow to our hero's pride. At that moment, he made the single greatest mistake he could have possibly made. He resorted to physical violence and sent the bastard flying with a punch. To be perfectly honest, that punch felt incredibly satisfying, even if it was the absolute worst thing to do in that hall. Even after taking a solid punch directly to the face, the manipulative noble let out a triumphant smile. This implied that he had intended for the situation to unfold this way. And that brings us back to the present day. Damian now fully understands that Erwin had deliberately allowed himself to be hit because he is, in fact, an incredibly skilled fighter, almost skilled enough to become a knight. So it would have been trivial for him to dodge the attack. As it turns out, the slimy creature was waiting for this very family meeting. This man shamelessly tells our hero's parents that he holds a deep admiration for Louise, their precious daughter. At first, the Viscount doesn't understand what Erwin is insinuating. That is, until Captain Douchebag over here brazenly proposes a political marriage between himself and Damian's sister. This shocking announcement rocks the entire Hacksun family to their core. Damian struggles to contain his boiling rage, knowing that this is the exact same chain of events that unfolded in his previous tragic life. The monster took full advantage of his family's desperate situation. Erwin doubles down on his threat, saying he will overlook what happened at the banquet hall, but only if she agrees to become a part of his family, thereby preventing any further conflict between their two houses. However, his father adamantly refuses such a despicable proposal. Like the absolute legend that he is, Erwin's frustration mounts after learning that Louise is already betrothed to another man. But then comes the matter of his public humiliation. At the banquet hall, Erwin reminds the Hacksun family that they will not be able to withstand the consequences that will come with rejecting his offer. It will surely lead to a disastrous outcome. The scumbag presents them with a final, terrible choice. It's either they give him their daughter's hand in marriage, or they suffer the devastating consequences. This is a truly agonizing decision for the Viscount to make. He knows that the Lion Bloom family is incredibly powerful, even among the noble elite. But even so, he knows what a truly despicable person Erwin is. His fatherly instincts simply cannot allow such a disgraceful fate to befall his daughter. Suddenly, Louise herself steps forward, making her presence known. She offers herself up as a sacrifice and accepts the terms of the marriage. Watching their own daughter sacrifice her future like this causes the Viscount to nearly break down. He tries to reassure her, telling her that they will find another way, even though Abel is seething with rage, and he knows that his sister shouldn't have to pay for the trouble Damian caused. Seeing her bravely take a stand for the sake of her family even causes a pang of sadness in Damian's heart. But the brave young woman maintains a sad smile, promising that she will go with Erwin. This entire tragic situation is a powerful reminder for our protagonist. It is a perfect reflection of his past sins, summarized in a single scene. Because of the problems that he created, his sister was forced to take the fall. Now that the situation has concluded in his favor, a wicked, triumphant smile spreads across Erwin's face. He is pleased that they have made the correct decision. As he prepares to take his leave, he informs Louise that a formal proposal will be sent shortly, so they can finalize the arrangements. But as he is spewing this arrogant nonsense, the devil himself materializes right before his eyes, glaring down at him with pure hatred. I think anyone with a sister would have the exact same expression as our hero. After what just happened, mocking Damian openly, Erwin addresses him as his new brother-in-law. Damian doesn't give a damn about this man's insults, but the fact that he destroyed his sister's life in the original timeline is more than enough motivation to prevent that tragedy from ever happening again. Louise cannot believe that her brother is actually taking a stand for her. He mutters something under his breath, something that the arrogant, blonde noble cannot even understand. What he does comprehend, however, is a vicious uppercut that sends him flying into the damn sky. While it is true that Damian should not have fallen for Erwin's provocation a second time, he simply cannot stand by and watch this monster tear his beloved family apart. The noble's body slams into the ground, while our hero declares his position with absolute certainty. He will not allow Owen to get his way. To understand the depths of his hatred for this man, we must take one final glimpse into the original tragic timeline. After being sold off to the cruel Lion Bloom family, Damian was unable to see his sister for a very long time. So one day, when he learned that they were coming for a visit, he could not contain his joy and ran to meet them with a smile on his face. He was so excited to finally see his sister. But things took a horrifying and traumatic turn the moment he arrived. His entire body froze in utter despair. Before him was his beautiful, gentle sister, her hair being pulled as if she were a wild animal. Erwin dragged her around, screaming about her pathetic family. He was enraged that she even had the audacity to threaten to leave him. Oh, but the monster did not stop there. To truly educate her and ensure she would never defy him again, Erwin prepared himself as the innocent girl trembled in terror. Clenching his fist, he brutally abused her as the poor girl cried out in agony. Just witnessing this horrific sight shattered our hero from the inside out. He was powerless to protect his own sister, and he was the one who had condemned her to this fate in the first place, all because of his foolish actions at that banquet hall. From that day forward, a deep, burning hatred took root in Damian's heart. A hatred reserved specifically for the monster known as Erwin Lionblood. And that brings us back to the present, where he has just finished uppercutting this man into oblivion. The entire family is completely stunned. The Lionbloom guards rush in with concern. After hearing their young master groaning in pain on the floor, they immediately draw their weapons, ready to apprehend the person responsible for harming their master. Damian gives them one look and recognizes them as Erwin's personal guard. Speaking of the monster, Erwin snarls like the cornered animal that he is and gets back to his feet. He is done being humiliated and struck in the face twice now, escalating the situation to open violence. He grips the hilt of his sword as the hack's son family watches in horror, finally revealing his true, monstrous nature. Erwin draws his blade. He asks if his brother-in-law is looking for a swift and painful death to prevent the situation from escalating into a bloodbath. His personal guards quickly move to intervene on his behalf, as this could create a very poor impression of their house. But this time, the enraged beast refuses to listen to reason and screams at his guards to move aside. When one of the loyal escort guards refuses the order, Erwin literally punches him into the nearest wall. I had genuinely mistaken him for a weakling, but damn, his skills really are close to that of a knight. He chillingly reminds his guards to get out of his way. Erwin glares at them with utter contempt. Abel and Louise are trembling with fear for their brother's safety, while the Lionbloom young master strides forward to eliminate Damian for good. He wonders how the Hackson family plans to resolve this situation, especially now that they've made things 10 times worse. Sensing the true danger to her brother's life, Louise understands that Damian will be seriously injured. She once again tries to step in to resolve the matter, but this time, our hero stands to protect her. She will no longer be forced to be the sacrifice. This time, Damian, her older brother, will handle this situation himself. He gives her a look of pure confidence, assuring her everything is fine. It is now time for an official one-on-one duel. Hearing the word duel completely astonishes the Lionblood young master. Damian makes his terms crystal clear. He states that he will accept any demand Erwin makes of him if he is defeated in their duel. But if our hero wins, everything that has transpired up to this point will be forgiven from both sides. Interestingly enough, Erwin is unwilling to accept the conditions of the duel because he has already gotten what he wanted from Louise. She already gave her consent to the marriage, instead of backing down from the challenge. Damian employs a clever tactic by directly attacking Erwin's ego. He calls him a coward for refusing to accept a formal duel. Basically, bro told him he had no balls, and it was a solid argument. The funniest part is that his taunt actually works. Erwin reconsiders and accepts the duel, simply because he believes he will effortlessly crush Damian in a true battle of skill. He sees this as the perfect opportunity to destroy Damian forever, and then claim his sister for himself. The sadistic monster points his blade at Damian and accepts the duel. In the next scene, Damian's mother is incredibly worried and wants to stop the duel, but seeing the sheer confidence his son is displaying, the Viscount believes that Damian must have some kind of hidden plan. That's why they must place all of their hope in his hands. Unfortunately for them, Abel understands just how hopeless this situation truly is. He is the only one present who truly grasps the extent of Erwin's skills, comparing them to those of an official knight. So, from his perspective, this is a losing battle from the very beginning. The arrogant young master wants to begin the battle at once, but he is stunned when he sees that his opponent isn't even interested in picking up a sword. Damian simply assures him that he'll be perfectly fine. In order to completely humiliate his opponent, Bro brings out his trusty fork. Ah yes, the legendary fork sword. the only weapon that can rival the ultimate stick of destruction. Seeing the damn fork in his hand, Erwin is completely at a loss for words, while Damian's family is on the verge of dying from pure stress, questioning what in the world he plans to do with that. Erwin immediately bursts out laughing in his face, finding it reasonable to assume that his opponent has already admitted his defeat. He thinks Damian has lost his mind. From pure terror, with absolute confidence, Erwin charges into the fight, intending to cut him down in a single blow. But to his utter astonishment, his first strike completely misses Damian, who had casually sidestepped the attack. To complicate his assault, Erwin launches a barrage of swings, unleashing his family's technique, the fierce roaring lion sword. Bro's got his own personal stand over here. Anyway, the devastating blow is all smoke and mirrors, because when the attack finally ends, our hero's feet are still planted firmly on the ground. He has deflected every single one of the strikes. Even the escort guards are completely speechless, unsure if their young master is simply toying with his opponent, or if his opponent is truly that skilled. To break down what just occurred, we take a look from Erwin's point of view. In the brief window of time when the technique was launched, our hero gracefully danced around each of his swings without taking a single scratch. As for Damian, he is relieved that his physical training is paying off. Thanks to his greatly increased stamina, he can now keep up with these rapid movements without exhausting himself. And need I remind you that he's doing all of this with just a simple dining fork. But also, he has already gained a deep understanding of the Lion Bloom family swordsmanship. And here's the interesting part. In the original timeline, the Death Knight, Damian actually fought against the eldest son of the Lion Bloom family, Michael Hell Lion Bloom, and that man was a true force to be reckoned with. Compared to him, his little brother is a pathetic disappointment. That is why the current Damian is having no trouble facing him now. Erwin's blood begins to boil as he unleashes waves of aura, refusing to believe that it was pure skill that allowed Damian to evade his family's signature technique. Unfortunately, this invocation of aura is extremely dangerous for anyone to face. So our hero is now faced with yet another deadly challenge. How will he possibly counter this? Erwin, Lion Bloom moves with blinding speed, closing the distance instantly. He is ready to deliver the killing blow. In this critical moment, Damian calmly selects the sword, Saint's technique from his vast arsenal of skills. He then decides to unleash it. A true clash of titans erupts, except Erwin's world completely shatters into pieces when he sees a mere fork blocking his powerful sword strike, and even overpowering it to a significant degree. He cannot even begin to comprehend what has happened. Before he can even process the impossible situation, he is struck by our hero's secret move, the Countless Thunder Shadow Revelations. Using this powerful technique, the ultimate fork of destruction sends his sword flying with ease. This is Erwin's final defeat, as Damian moves in to end the battle. With his fork in hand, he stabs the arrogant noble directly in the neck, ending the duel as every single member of his family gasps in horror. You might be thinking that a fork was just used as a murder weapon, but it turns out that our hero is actually quite merciful. He only pricked Erwin's neck with a fork, as if to warn him of what he could have done. Even after receiving such a minor injury, this pathetic man starts freaking out like a little baby. Of course, in his heart of hearts, Damian truly would have loved to kill him and to erase this disease from the face of the earth. But he knows that he must prioritize his family this time and let this situation de-escalate. So he officially concludes the duel, declaring himself the victor, and asks if little Erwin has any objections to this outcome. Shaking like a frightened puppy, the once arrogant noble has been reduced to a harmless, whimpering child. Damian coldly tells this pathetic man to get lost. As the scene finally comes to a close, if you guys think the way Damian handled that public humiliation was satisfying, then be sure to smash that like button and show your support. After the duel, the family shares a tense and silent breakfast. The following morning, having finished his meal, our hero gets up to leave for his daily training. With him gone, the family is left in a state of somber silence. The boy's mother, in particular, is extremely curious and wonders when they should finally speak to Damian about what happened. Speaking of which, Abel is still experiencing a full system reboot. The kid is in a permanent state of utter shock, unable to comprehend how his older brother suddenly became so unbelievably powerful. Even his parents share his concern. The Viscount finally breaks the silence, emphasizing that it would be wrong to pressure their son for an answer. He believes the correct course of action is to let the boy reveal the truth, when he feels that the time is right. I really appreciate that they're not trying to force it out of him here. It's a really nice, wholesome touch. Apart from that, his father is still visibly shaken, though he's curious about his son's transformation. The look of death he now sees in Damian's eyes intimidates him, to the point where he doesn't want to confront him about it. even though Damian is his own flesh and blood. That boy has become far more intimidating than ever before. Shifting the perspective back to our hero, he's out here taking inspiration from the legendary Rock Lee, strapping his body with incredibly heavy weights to train his endurance. As he's about to head out, Louise manages to catch up to her brother. She is the first person from his family to approach him to discuss what happened the other day. While she struggles to find the right words, our hero recognizes his past mistakes and immediately bows his head. He apologizes for all the trouble he has caused and for forcing her into such a vulnerable and terrible position. While he is rambling on with his heartfelt apology, his sister stops him, offering her most sincere gratitude. She admits that he truly did stand up for her, and she had been terrified, even though she managed to hide her fear in front of Erwin. It is only thanks to her brother that she was able to avoid such a miserable fate. Hearing her admit this makes Damian incredibly happy to know that he has made a real difference. Knowing that her brother bravely stood up to save her from her fate is a reason she is so incredibly grateful to him now, in a heartwarming moment as he receives her thanks. A pure, radiant bond of devotion emanates from his sister, and her brother reciprocates with overwhelming gratitude. He is truly thankful for her unwavering faith in him. Before Louise can even process the depth of his words, he turns to depart for his rigorous training. But as he leaves, she presents him with a magnificent sword. It is their father's most treasured personal heirloom, a profound gesture of love and acceptance for his son. The Viscount bestowed this blade upon him so that Damian could properly hone his newfound skills. The boy is stunned by this unexpected sign of his father's trust. Louise then reveals that despite their father's harsh and stern exterior, his love for Damian is immeasurable. Funnily enough, she does a perfect, comically stern impression of him, reminding Damian to never again wield a fork in combat, as it brings great dishonor upon their noble house. Damian is completely convinced by her flawless imitation. He unsheathes the gifted sword and is deeply impressed by its craftsmanship. He is now truly in his father's debt. Hilariously, when the scene cuts to his father's armory, we see that the man possesses an entire arsenal of magnificent swords. He was just complaining about his prized blade for no reason. In the next scene, a sinister terror creeps through the shadows. The evil mage and his unholy magic have arrived at a certain estate. The guards on night duty are yawning, overcome with exhaustion. And in that one moment of vulnerability, the shadows themselves rise up to claim them. They are both consumed and silenced in a single, horrifying instant, with the two of them erased. The mysterious mage slips silently through the gates. In the tense moments that follow, the vile mage quietly makes his way into the main house. Abel and his parents are sound asleep. The mage silently creeps towards Louise's bedchamber. She is also in a deep slumber, unaware an evil presence looms over her. This disgusting, filthy creature is enjoying the sight of her, even though he was sent here on behalf of the Black Snake. He thinks he has found a new, amusing toy for himself. The lecherous mage is suddenly startled when he hears a cold, menacing voice from behind it. It's our hero. He's radiating a powerful aura at the door, looking more menacing than ever. He gives the invader a look of pure disgust and questions his presence. The call out is chilling as Damian continues to explain that he sensed a strange, unholy energy lurking within their home, so he decided to investigate it himself. The Dark Mage's perspective is quite interesting. Even though he cast a powerful spell to put everyone to sleep, it appears that Damian was completely immune to its effects. Not only that, the Dark Mage couldn't even sense his approach from behind until he finally spoke. These factors alone are enough to tell him that this man is a serious threat. So he instantly turns and unleashes a torrent of dark energy. Dodging the magical assault, our hero moves to a new position, all the while infuriating the Dark Mage, who fails to comprehend what is even happening. Damian readies his newly gifted sword, throwing the same question back at the intruder. He reminds the filthy creature that he is the one who invaded their home. Suddenly, the mage realizes he is speaking to his primary target, Damian of the esteemed House Hack son. Confirming his identity, our hero brandishes his blade. He locks a lethal, icy glare upon the mage, and he demands to know why in the hell he dared to step foot in his sister's room. The powerful magic blast shook the entire mansion and has awakened the rest of the family. The mage realizes he will be in serious trouble if the servants have already been alerted. He was supposed to carry out his mission cleanly, as per his contract. The Dark Mage makes the decision to retreat for the time being, as he dissolves away into a mist of shadows. Damian attempts to strike him down. Unfortunately, there is very little one can do when fighting against thin air, so his enemy escapes through the window and flees the estate, vanishing into the dark of the night. With the immediate threat now gone, Damian suddenly notices a lingering trace of the mage's dark energy. It appears the fool left a piece of himself behind. In the following scene, we cut to the perspective of the servants. They have just discovered the horrific sight of the Viscount's most treasured warhorse dead. If word of this reaches the Viscount, he will unleash hell. It's also extremely strange, as the horse was perfectly healthy yesterday, as the servants are muttering in terror. Damian appears and shocks them with his sudden arrival. He expresses his own deep concern. The young master's abrupt appearance startles them, but he assures them there is no reason for any of them to panic. He is not here to hold either one of them responsible for this. All he wants is to take a personal look at the scene. He then orders them to leave the stable at once. Now that he is alone, Damian inspects the horse's condition. It seems that the same shadowy trail of dark energy is somehow connected to this dead animal. From the looks of it, he confirms the presence of dark mana, based on the terrifying and unique energy signature. This also confirms his deepest suspicions. The man he confronted last night is, in fact, a dark mage, one who practices forbidden sorcery. Now, Damian understands that his family is still unaware of what transpired. In fact, he has no plans to reveal the truth to them, as it would only cause unnecessary chaos and fear. Instead, he glares back at the lingering trail of dark energy, which hangs in the air and creates a path into the deep forest. A short while later, we see the hidden lair of the dark mage. Apparently, he is storing all of his valuables here, while snickering to himself like a low-budget villain. This is because Cedric has recently sent him all of the supplies he had requested. He had lied to the Black Snake's inept leader, claiming that it was a curse. But based on the vast amount of inventory he received, the dark mage is pleased that his twisted experiments will be able to continue for some time. At the same time, he feels a pang of disappointment in his own abilities. He is being forced to accept low-tier assassination requests just to earn a small amount of money. Then again, it is the only viable option he has, especially since the Holy Church is already hunting for him. It is absolutely vital for him to maintain a low profile, or so he had thought, because following that same trail of dark energy, our hero happily makes his appearance. Think of it as returning the favor for invading his home. He calls out the mage's disgusting stench. I bet it's comparable to that one strange guy on the bus, ripping one and killing everyone with his toxic gas. The dark mage cannot believe his own eyes. The eldest son of the Viscount, the same man he fought yesterday, has just shown up on his very doorstep. It greatly disturbs him that Damian somehow discovered his secret hideout. I mean, it wasn't that difficult. I would bet, considering the fact that his mana smells like the inside of an average gamer's room. The dark mage reveals he had heard the rumors about the noble, who stood up to the forces of the Black Snake Syndicate. But now that he has seen the boy in person, he can tell that Damian is far more powerful than anyone believes. The young master is pleased that his guess was correct, knowing that this dark mage shares a direct connection with the vile organization. The dark mage confirms this to be true, revealing that part of their contract is to ensure that Damian suffers a slow, agonizing, and painful death. Hearing this only makes him laugh, as he declares what is about to happen next. He points out that the mage is the one who will die for accepting such a contract. Hearing such a ridiculous statement from him, the mage begins to cackle. He unveils his sinister nature, finding twisted joy in his victim's delusion. He is in the mood to create the perfect experimental pet out of Damian. After he captures him, the swordsman readies his blade, assuring the mage that will not be the case, because in this life, he has promised himself that he will never kill anyone, unless it is absolutely and completely necessary. However, the only exception to this sacred rule are people as vile as the Dark Mage, who are the very definition of filth and pure disgust. Damian is more than happy to wipe them from the face of the planet. The Dark Mage is astonished yet again by the boy's knowledge, but he believes it is all completely meaningless. He then blasts him with multiple magical circle attacks. He will not allow the Viscount's son to escape at any cost. But lucky for him, our hero shares no such intention either. Looking cool as hell, he sweeps right in with an incredible lunge and connects with a clean upward slash, cutting his opponent clean in half. Diseases are notoriously hard to kill, and just like a terrible disease, this man is also incredibly hard to kill, despite being literally split in two. He simply dissolves once more into the shadows, reassembling his physical form. Damian internalizes that his opponent is using the same ability. He's back at the family estate, and that this mage is actually incredibly powerful, even if he had to accept a low-tier request to kill someone. A maniacal laugh erupts from his mouth as the dark mage assumes his ultimate victory. He maintains that he cannot be cut down by ordinary means. So, in order to deal with a pest such as him, Damian decides to go absolutely ballistic and unleashes a flurry of cuts to ensure nothing remains. Even though it is a valiant effort on his part, it still does not change The fact that his opponent's body can reassemble with ease. The Dark Mage thinks he is dealing with someone powerful, but he makes it known that the moment Damian entered his secret lair, he sealed his own inescapable fate. Speaking of sealing his fate, the scumbag uses the same attack he once used against Ted, restraining Damian completely in place and letting his demonic pets devour what's left. The thing is, the Dark Mage knew that the church was hunting him, so he doubled down on his magical preparations with advanced spells. From the looks of it, the situation is becoming incredibly tense. Even our hero is getting tensed up, considering his dire circumstances. The mage grimaces in a twisted victory, laughing at the inevitable demise of his opponent, who will regret ever challenging an officer of the Yulan rank. With Damian completely restrained, he is moments away from being utterly devoured by the creatures of the endless dark, and meeting the same horrific fate as the apprentice knight. The tendrils of dark magic mummify their helpless victim. It's like watching a giant spider, webbing up its prey and tangling it securely in place. The Dark Mage returns to his tangible, physical form and calls Damian arrogant for his reckless and foolish approach. He also remembers Cedric's explicit order to make his target suffer as much as he possibly can, which is made possible by the fact that he'll be able to torture him for a very, very long time. This monster is also out here celebrating that he can now feast on the beautiful young woman he saw earlier without any further interruptions. That is, until Damian drops a surprising little note for him. He shatters apart the decomposing curse spell that was used on him, completely at a loss for words. The Dark Mage has a look of pure despair, questioning how his prey is completely and utterly unaffected. It should be impossible to dispel this curse, unless the person knows about dark magic themselves, which is exactly what our hero has just done. Here's the thing though. Even Damian himself is taken aback by what he just did. I guess his regression powers have kicked in, because it appears he has awakened an authority insignia on his body, even though he should not have it at this point in his past life. Let's talk about what an authority actually is. In this world, it is known as the power of a god, gifted to a mortal. In this particular case, Dorgos favored his Death Knight so much that he infused him with the strongest magic and bound it to his soul. Even after granting him indestructible magic and immense power, Dorgos was still left unsatisfied. He wanted to create even more from his Death Knight, the ultimate servant and the peerless sword of evil. Hence, he decided to slit his own demonic hand, unleashing a portion of his own divine dark power, turning the Death Knight into the ultimate living weapon. A massive column of dark mana pulsed upon the Death Knight, as Dargo forced his authority upon him, and with a final sealing hand sign, he imbued all of it directly into Damian's very being. It carved a glowing insignia onto his hand. That unholy power ripped his entire body apart, subjecting him to a world of pain unlike any other. By the end of this horrifying process, the Death Knight had transcended into a realm of unstoppable power. This absolute legend had received the authority of a god and had become a true force to be reckoned with. Side note, all of a sudden, I'm starting to understand why Dorgos got his ass nuked. Bro literally turned his Death Knight into a miniature nuclear weapon and thought everything was going to be just fine. Back to the present. Damian now remembers the mark of the authority of greed. It's his dormant power as the Death Knight, resurfacing once again before he is able to fully process this revelation. Another magic blast comes hurtling his way, which he easily and quickly evades. The Dark Mage raises an immediate question for him. Just how in the hell was he able to survive his decomposition spell? Being a good sport, Damian finally says that he had a trump card, and that's the reason why. The most convincing explanation is, of course, the power of plot armor, and the author makes sure to slide that little tidbit in. Back to the battle. Damian has now gained a deeper understanding of his opponent and his direct connection to Yulan. This Yulan is actually another rival organization, an even more sinister one, that practices assassination using forbidden dark magic. Compared to them, the Black Snake Syndicate is nothing. It's no surprise that this mage is actually incredibly skilled. The Dark Mage assesses the situation as well. He internalizes that he cannot let this battle drag on any longer, especially when his opponent is so dangerously unpredictable, even though he wanted to save his ultimate weapon for the church. He thinks this is an appropriate time to whip out the good stuff. With his magical bracelet glowing a bright, sickly green, the mage unleashes a massive wave of mana exuding from his body as he slowly begins to lose control of himself. Even Damian notices that this guy is using a dangerous amount of dark magic. From his own understanding, the bracelet appears to be some kind of artifact to store mana. Well, things go from 0 to 100 really quick when this guy uses his full power. He summons an illusory beast that I don't even know how to describe. Let's just call him the Ugly Five Eyes. Having now lost control, The Dark Mage roars the demise of his opponent and declares that Damian will burn in the eternal hellfire. The creature of pure destruction swarms completely in and connects against our hero's body. With a direct hit like that, the Dark Mage once again assumes his inevitable victory. How could anyone on Earth possibly survive such a powerful hellfire? After all, hellfire is a substance that cannot be extinguished, even after one's death. Using the power of plot armor once again, Damian breezes through the ominous green flames, pointing out the mage's fatal miscalculation. The thing about the authority of greed is that it doesn't simply dispel dark magic. Damian stands there completely unharmed, as the same hellfire flames are absorbed directly into his body. He stands there, uncontested, having become more powerful than ever before, revealing that the true function of his authority is to absorb all dark magic. The mage is completely at a loss for words, questioning how a Viscount's son could possess the terrifying power of a divine authority. It is now time for this fight to end, as the young master readies his menacing blade, commanding that he has nothing to explain to a dead man. But on the inside, Damian is genuinely pissed off that he has to rely on his dark powers to win this battle. At the same time, he has very little choice but to invoke the techniques of the dreaded Death Knight in order to win this fight for good. The Dark Mage is at a loss for words when he sees the Aura Blade. The sword is now coated in a black, sinister aura. And it's not just any ordinary sword technique, either. It's something only achievable by a warrior of the Swordmaster rank. Before he can yap again about his confusion over Damian's abilities, our boy renders his ultimate forbidden technique, the soul-severing slash, slicing his opponent's body cleanly, and leaving a massive gash in the very cave wall. The place crumbles after being devastated by his powerful blade, while Damian glares down at his helpless victim. The strike is so powerful that it tears through the Dark Mage and slices the mountain behind it. Without a moment's pause, Damian walks toward the fallen mage and pins him with his sword. He demands to know the location of the Dark Snake's hideout. The very next morning, the boy heads toward the city of Landwork alongside Victor. The portly man questions the reason for their sudden journey, but the boy quickly shuts him down for asking too many questions, redirecting his intense curiosity. The Big Mac's attention shifts to a dark book that Damian is reading. The boy claims it's a grimoire of dark magic he recently acquired, though in truth, he knows it came from the dark mage he just took down. Victor remains highly skeptical, knowing that such grimoires are incredibly rare and difficult to obtain. But before he can say anything more, he is distracted by a strange, foul odor coming from a heavy sack that Damian is carrying. Soon, they arrive at the local market, where the boy hands the heavy sack to him, casually stating that it contains a person's severed head. Still refusing to believe his master, he opens the sack to look for himself, only to spot a lifeless, dead eye staring back at him. With a panicked yell, he hurls it away and begins to breathe heavily, shaken to his very core. When he demands an explanation, the boy tells him to first deliver the head and the book. He will explain everything to him afterwards. Despite nearly soiling his own trousers, Victor agrees. A short while later, the boy arrives at the gates of the Dark Snake's main headquarters and confidently announces his presence. The guards dismiss the hacksaw name at first, until they realize he is the one their boss had warned them about. The boy quickly catches on that they already know who he is, and he pressures them to let him pass through. To Victor's shock, they actually agree. But just as they are about to allow him to enter, one of the guards suddenly fires a signal flare into the sky. In mere seconds, the entire compound swarms with countless assassins and bounty hunters, surrounding Damian with their weapons drawn and ready. According to them, this is the welcome gift prepared by their boss. Yet, despite being completely and utterly surrounded, the boy remains perfectly calm, certain they will regret the choice they've made. Meanwhile, inside the main headquarters, Cedric, the boss of the Dark Snake Syndicate, is hosting the Landward governor and his drunken knight over lunch. The governor is clearly enjoying the fine meal and pleasant company. He casually grants Cedric complete control over the city's red light district. Cedric lights up with pure excitement at this amazing offer, though he worries that others may protest the decision. But the governor quickly and easily reassures him, claiming that he holds the authority to silence any and all opposition. The knight, slouched over and clearly tipsy, tries to offer his assistance with something, but the portly man simply brushes him off, insisting the knight is already doing his part by protecting them. He tells him not to waste his valuable energy on such trivial matters. The comment clearly flusters the knight, and both he and the governor appear ready to do whatever Cedric asks. Cedric plays along with them, keeping them wrapped around his finger. In reality, He only entertains them, so he won't have to bow to their power later. His ambitions reach far beyond a simple district. He plans to one day claim the entire city for himself. Just as they are enjoying this triumphant moment, one of his underlings barges in, urgently calling for Cedric. Though clearly annoyed by the interruption, Cedric follows him out. When the man reveals that it is Damian, Cedric shouts his name so loudly that even the governor can hear it from the other room. He is fuming with uncontrollable rage. Realizing the dark mage he had relied on turned out to be a failure. Still, he waves the man off, claiming there is no need for him to worry. In Cedric's mind, Damian has foolishly walked into his own death trap, and even if things do not go exactly as he has planned, he has someone who still owes him a significant favor, someone who will make absolutely sure the job gets done. Sensing that something is terribly wrong, the portly man steps out of the building to check. He is shocked to see his assassins all lying defeated on the ground, while the boy stands there completely and utterly unharmed. The sight completely stuns him. He had always heard that Damian Hack's son was nothing more than the useless, pathetic son of a viscount, but this boy clearly has some incredible skill. This realization makes him wonder if Damian was also the one who took down his dark mages. Pure panic sets in, and he rushes back inside, hoping to get some powerful reinforcements. Outside, a mage fires a massive fireball at Damian using their staff. To their utter shock, he counters it with his sword, channeling his countless thunder technique to deflect and redirect the attacks directly back at them. The rebounding magic blasts explode in fiery bursts, reducing the unfortunate mages to charred, smoking corpses. It seems as if all of them have been taken out, until Damian suddenly senses something approaching him from behind. He turns just in time to narrowly dodge a devastating sword strike. The powerful blow crashes into the ground, sending up a violent, destructive shockwave. Though he avoids taking a direct hit, Damian can feel the overwhelming, suffocating aura. It is so incredibly intense, it even singes the ends of his hair. As the dust finally clears, a knight radiating deadly intent stands before him. The sheer pressure tells Damian that this man might be a formally ranked official knight. Soon, more soldiers arrive and completely surround. The sight stuns Damian, as it's clear these are not just mercenaries. They are the official city troops, the ones responsible for maintaining public order in the city. He immediately understands what this turn of events means. Moments later, the governor bursts onto the scene, shouting accusations at the boy for disrupting the peace. In the very heart of his city, Cedric stands smugly at his side, as the governor publicly declares that Damian will be punished, not only for targeting a respected businessman like Cedric, but for brutally attacking and killing his employees. The townspeople look on, visibly confused as to why the governor is openly siding with someone like that. Fatso Cedric, standing confidently next to the governor, believes the boy is finally trapped in some real trouble, but Damian does not even flinch. He instantly recognizes Cedric as the leader of the Black Snake, and he calls him out with sharp, unwavering, and piercing eyes. Damian had suspected the Black Snake's leader had some connections, but this level of influence is completely and utterly absurd. He openly calls out the governor for supporting someone like that. Double cheeseburger of a man. The governor, completely unfazed, demands that he immediately surrender. But the boy refuses, insisting he has committed no actual crime. Growing impatient, the governor orders his personal knight, Robert, to handle the situation personally, responding to the given command. Robert steps forward and tells Damian to submit to his arrest. But to his great surprise, there is not a single flicker of fear in the boy's eyes. Taking this as a sign of arrogance, the knight swings his sword in a flash. Damian narrowly dodges, and the powerful strike crashes into the ground, sending clouds of rubble flying. Though he has provoked the knight, Damian knows that this will not be an easy fight, not against an opponent of this level. He braces himself, but Robert lands a powerful, crushing blow, sending him flying. The boy manages to land on his feet, though the hit clearly rattles him, despite his desperate attempt to deflect. As the fight continues, Damian is silently waiting for someone to arrive, but the knight gives him absolutely no breathing room, pressing in with a relentless, terrifying speed and swinging his massive axe with brutal, overwhelming force. Just as the weapon is about to land, someone suddenly jumps between them and blocks the powerful attack. The impact is so strong it sends the knight's axe flying from his hands. Completely stunned, the knight demands to know who it is. When the figure finally reveals herself, everyone stands in shock that it is a muscle mommy paladin. Damian exhales a sigh of pure relief. Their reinforcement has finally arrived, and Victor is the one responsible. Cedric realizes that a paladin's personal intervention means that the church is now directly involved, and they might already know about the dark Mage's connection to all of the recent events. As it turns out, Damian had sent Victor to the church, carrying the Dark Mage's severed head, and Victor followed through with his orders exactly as instructed, effectively saving him just a few hours earlier. Victor had arrived at the church, drenched in a greasy, fried sweat, carrying both the heavy sack and the book that Damian gave him. He handed them over to a local nun, claiming they were evidence of someone collaborating with dark mages. As she began to examine the book, she immediately sensed the powerful, dark energy emanating from it. Upon noticing the unique symbol inside, her expression immediately shifted to one of pure shock. Without saying a single word, she snatched the sack from Victor, and the moment she laid eyes on the severed head, she recognized it as the long-sought-after officer of Yulon. Without a moment of hesitation, she stripped off her simple nun attire, revealing a powerful, muscular mommy figure form beneath, and she demanded to know who had sent Victor with these items. Now, back in the present, she seems excited to finally meet Damian and assures everyone that the church will take over this matter. From here on out, Damian respectfully agrees. This is exactly how he had hoped things would ultimately unfold. Paladins, who are devoted to serving their god, are well known for their charity, kindness, and compassion. But when it comes to dealing with demons and the dark arts, they do not hesitate. They become utterly relentless, almost fanatical in their duty. They are, after all, the powerful vanguard of the church. And with this new development, Damian knows he now has the Holy Church on his side. As he reflects on everything, the paladin steps forward and addresses the gathered citizens. She announces that due to evidence of someone within the city communicating with practitioners of dark magic, the church will now be launching a full official investigation. Until then, they will be assuming full control of the city. This does not sit well with the local governor, as the city was previously granted self-governance by the kingdom. However, the paladin firmly and quickly shuts him down, stating that the church holds the authority to overrule even the kingdom itself. And besides, both he and his knight are now considered prime suspects. Hearing this, they are completely and utterly stunned. But the real shock comes when she points directly at Cedric, accusing them of protecting the man who supported the dark mages and who hid amongst them. Cedric immediately denies the accusation when he is questioned, but the paladin presents the dark book as clear evidence. It contains detailed, transactional records of Cedric purchasing illegal supplies for the dark mage. This revelation absolutely enrages Cedric, furious that the dark mage had documented everything. As the soldiers begin turning their attention on Cedric, he and his men start desperately pleading their innocence, but it is already far too late for them. The paladin orders them to be taken into custody for further investigation. As they are being led away, the governor spots Damian and realizes he was the mastermind behind all of this. He is now torn between pure anger and absolute fear, unsure of what the church might end up doing to him next. Meanwhile, Cedric makes one final desperate attempt to escape justice. He tries to provoke the governor's knight, urging him to act and not to let a mere boy frame them. The knight pauses, thinking for a brief, tense moment, and then, to everyone's absolute shock, he breaks free from the church guards and charges directly at the paladin, hoping to take her down in a single blow and flee. But his powerful strike misses her completely. To his horror, the paladin counters in an instant, delivering a devastating punch directly to his gut. According to the Holy Paladin, those who dare obstruct the path of God will be judged. By divine decree, a fate this night just witnessed firsthand. Seeing this grim spectacle, Cedric immediately grovels on the ground, while the governor clutches foolishly to his pride. Meanwhile, our hero is simply savoring this moment of justice, watching the once mighty leader of the Black Snake brought low and kneeling before the entire crowd. For this, Damian gives Victor a silent nod of gratitude. From his keen observation, this paladin is far more powerful than he ever anticipated, judging from her overwhelming aura and presence. She has to be an apprentice of the legendary Azure Flame. The Azure Flame are known as the church's most elite fighting force, famous for vanquishing countless powerful demonic foes. As Damian is lost in his strategic thoughts, the paladin addresses him directly by name. She thanks him for his service in destroying the Dark Mage of Yulon. She reassures him that the Holy Church will recognize his deeds and that he will face no charges for his actions. She reveals the church is well aware that Damian contacted them, not just to report a dangerous heretic, but also to use the church as a shield to cover his own war against the Black Snake. Hearing this, Damian offers a respectful apology. He explains the vile dark mage attempted to bring harm to his family. The paladin, clearly moved by his devotion, agrees to absolve him of any and all wrongdoing. She also confirms that the substantial bounty for the dark mage, 1,000 gold coins, will be awarded directly to him, while that sum is enough to purchase a small kingdom. Damian has no interest in the gold, Instead, he requests something far more valuable, one of the Holy Church's secret mana cultivation arts. This shocking request takes the paladin completely by surprise, that despite possessing such immense strength, he still desires to reach even greater heights. Yet, Damian understands a grim truth. Although he defeated the Dark Mage using his divine authority, he knows he will not survive the coming apocalypse, the future that awaits, without forging his own power. For that, he desperately needs this advanced mana cultivation method, the very same one used by the Holy Paladins. He explains that he has only managed to learn the most basic level of it, and he now wishes to master the most advanced stage. This revelation astonishes the Paladin. To reach such a level of power, using only the fundamentals, is practically unheard of. She can feel the immense, refined aura flowing within his body, and the fact that he was able to single-handedly defeat a Dark Mage only serves to deepen her impression of him. Deeply moved by his incredible potential, the Paladin offers him something even greater than the cultivation art. With genuine excitement, she invites him to become a Holy Paladin himself. But to her utter shock, our protagonist politely declines the offer. She struggles to comprehend why anyone would reject such a prestigious and honorable position, a station considered to be a great and holy privilege, granted to only a select few chosen to serve the divine. She insists that it is incredibly difficult to even earn that title. However, Damian is not a particularly devout man, and more importantly, he has absolutely no desire to be the church's pawn. Of course, he cannot simply say that to her face. Instead, he humbly claims he is not yet worthy of such a title. For the time being, he lies, saying he wishes to travel the world as a humble follower in a quest to find the truth. To Victor's absolute shock, this performance worked perfectly. The Paladin appears to be genuinely moved by Damian's false humility, thoroughly impressed by his words. She agrees to grant him access to the sacred mana technique, and she warmly invites him to visit the church whenever he wishes. With that, she formally introduces herself to him as Agnes, the first and foremost apprentice of the Azure Flame. Damian respectfully acknowledges her prestigious title. He then requests her permission to handle one final personal matter. She's a bit confused until she sees him stride over to Cedric and, without any warning, punch the fat directly out of the man. He follows this up with a devastating kick that sends the crime lord flying across the entire street. Only then does Damian finally feel a sense of satisfaction. With that, he and Victor have achieved everything they set out to do. Meanwhile, at the opulent Lion Bloom family estate, Erwin's father rushes to his son's side after hearing of the incident. Erwin, still trembling with fear, wails that Damian attempted to murder him with a common fork. This news absolutely enrages his father. He bellows, demanding to know who dared to lay a hand on his son. To his shock, the guards reveal it was Damian of House Hack's son. This only serves to intensify his uncontrollable fury. The very idea that a so-called lowlife like Damian beat his son, using what he assumes were cowardly and dishonorable tricks, drives him into a blind rage. He begins smashing the furniture, completely and utterly consumed by his anger. In a fit of pure, vengeful fury, he commands his men to drag Damian to him like a dog immediately. Meanwhile, back at the Hackson household, Paladin Agnes arrives with her retinue and greets Damian's father. Upon seeing them, his father's mood immediately sours. He is furious that his son not only caused more trouble, but has now brought what he calls a group of lunatics into their home. Agnes, maintaining her polite demeanor, informs him that their presence here is directly related to the investigation of a dangerous heretic. Despite his clear irritation, his father becomes visibly and suddenly concerned about whether their humble house can accommodate 4 extra guests. However, his house magically seems to expand when she offers a bag of gold. Later, as Damian's parents have retired to their room, Agnes thanks Damian for allowing her and her knights to stay. Internally, he had never expected her to make such a bizarre request. To his surprise, she has yet another one. Even more unexpectedly, she wants to ask some personal questions about it. Apparently, it is part of her duties in spreading the holy gospel. His parents happen to overhear this conversation, and they immediately misinterpret it as something romantic. This only serves to make Damian even more embarrassed. Eventually, Agnes finally gets to her main point. She hands over the powerful mana training technique he had requested, and, as an added bonus, she gives him a matching sword technique. She explains that the 2 sacred arts complement each other perfectly. These 2 ancient books, a destructive sword style and an advanced energy cultivation method, are unlike anything Damian has ever encountered, even in his past life. As he begins to quickly skim through one of the ancient tomes, Agnes begins to go on about how difficult they were to acquire. She continues to speak at length, making sure he knows she went to great lengths to help him. She even reveals that after she reported everything to her master, the Azure Flame himself, he expressed a great interest in Damian joining the Paladins. With that, she once again extends the invitation for him to join their order. But our hero as always, politely declines her offer. Agnes does not press the matter any further. She simply smiles and offers her help if he should ever need it, and then she takes her leave. Watching her depart, Damian feels a sense of unease as one thing becomes crystal clear. She is a true, unwavering fanatic. Elsewhere, inside the ruined cave of a now-deceased dark mage, investigators from the church are carefully examining the remains. One of them appears to be visibly shocked, as he still cannot believe that a mere kid like Damian was able to defeat a mage who was trained in forbidden dark magic. The other investigator shares this exact same doubt, but points out that Lady Agnes has not raised any concerns about it. Still, the bizarre situation troubles both of them greatly. As they're discussing it, Agnes herself arrives and addresses their concerns head-on. She acknowledges that their skepticism is perfectly understandable, but insists that she is confident Damian is telling the truth. One of the investigators argues that they still cannot comprehend how he could have done it. In response to this, Agnes reveals that they have already heard the full account from Damian himself. She explains that on the day his servant delivered the severed head, she also had her own doubts about his true abilities. That is precisely why she stayed behind and secretly observed him when he was later ambushed by deadly assassins. To her great surprise, Damian completely and utterly overwhelmed them. But what shocked her the most was seeing him deflect a raging fireball with nothing more than his bare sword. Hearing this, both of the investigators are in total disbelief. However, Agnes explains that she has heard of legendary warriors who, upon reaching a certain higher level, can deflect magic attacks with nothing but raw skill and aura control. One of the investigators begins to speculate that Damian might actually be a swordmaster, but Agnes remains completely unsure of this, though she firmly believes he is, at the very least, a gifted warrior. She also reveals that after Yulan's ultimate defeat, she considered taking Damian with her to meet her powerful master, believing he could become a valuable asset to the Holy Church. With that, she firmly orders them to stop doubting him and to focus on their work. Outside the Haxon estate, an official knight of House Lion Bloom arrives. He is leading 2 apprentice knights closely behind him. He confirms that this is the correct location, and one of the younger knights nods in quick acknowledgement. The leader then repeats their primary mission, to arrest Damian of House Haxon. According to him, it should be a relatively simple task, but he makes it perfectly clear that he intends to make them all suffer. This is a personal vendetta for Erwin's recent humiliation. Just as he is speaking, he notices an old man barely walking by. He calls out to him, asking if he serves the Viscount Haxon's household, when the old man simply confirms. The knight, without a moment's hesitation, cuts him down in a flash. Wait, what did that old man even do? F's in the chat, boys. The knight believes it is disrespectful for a mere common servant not to bow before the glorious lion crest. Meanwhile, the apprentice knight quietly realizes that the old man might have been completely blind, but the commander does not care, without a single hint of remorse. He orders his men to drag Damian out of the family estate and to slaughter everyone else once they are finally inside. Upon receiving their new command, the knights immediately charge forward, heading directly towards Victor, who is casually standing guard at the front gate, busily cleaning. Deep within the forest, Lady Agnes's team stands closely together, casually chatting. Agnes explains that the site ended up collapsing, which made it more difficult to gather as much intel as she had hoped. Still, she reassures them it is fine, since everyone did a solid job. But then, out of nowhere, something spectacular catches their eyes. Something that stops them all completely dead in their tracks. Atop a large rock sits a single, lone figure, calmly manifesting raw magic in the most mesmerizing way possible. Their jaws drop to the floor as they watch. Stunned, Agnes stares on in pure disbelief, wondering what on earth is happening and how he is even doing. She finds the entire spectacle to be simply remarkable, even though she has no idea what kind of technique it is. In her mind, she begins to piece everything together. That destructive energy technique that she handed over to Damian must have been a special cultivation method. And if it is taken to its absolute highest level, it supposedly allows the user to absorb surrounding mana freely. What shocks her the most is that he has reached such a height in just a matter of hours. As Damian snaps out of his incredibly focused state, he looks down to see 3 wide-eyed, shocked onlookers. Agnes and her team are staring up at him like curious baboons. Agnes cannot seem to hold herself back. She bolts straight towards him. Damian, calm and completely casual, glances her way and asks if they are finished with their investigation. Right then, Damian is feeling pretty good about the book in his hands, fully absorbed and immersed in its contents. Agnes, watching him very closely, cannot help but notice the impressive progress that he has made. It hits him that Agnes was not exaggerating at all when she spoke of how incredibly rare this book truly is. It is the real deal, hard to acquire, and even harder to master. As a peerless swordsman in his previous life, traditional sword techniques hold very little meaning for him now. But this unique cultivation method is a complete game changer. Something truly and incredibly useful, even for someone like him. Come to think of it, the destructive energy technique was specifically designed to compensate for the insane mana drain that is caused by the destructive sword technique itself. Thankfully, it's built completely differently. It collects mana far faster than most other known techniques, and it can even temporarily pull in external mana from the surroundings. That ability alone makes it a powerful and priceless asset, especially for someone of Damian's caliber, who needs fuel for high-level combat without burning himself out. Lady Agnes and Damian suddenly catch themselves locking eyes, and for one brief, strange moment, everything seems to pause. The beautiful snow-white paladin blushes softly, while the weirdo himself is the one to break the ensuing silence. He casually points out that it is already approaching dinner time. He suggests that they should head back to the estate together, but out of absolutely nowhere, Damian suddenly senses a sharp wave of bloodlust. His instincts are screaming at him that the vermin have finally arrived. Without wasting a single precious second, he tells Agnes that he has a very urgent errand to take care of, and that he will be heading out first. He kindly tells her to return at her own comfortable pace. Agnes is left stunned, watching him disappear with unbelievable speed, especially considering he used such a minuscule amount of mana. She realizes, then, that he must be controlling it with incredible precision. Agnes quietly wonders to herself just how far Damian's limits truly go. Meanwhile, back at the House of Haxon, things have already taken a very violent turn. Knight Lavender is mercilessly beating the servant Victor, landing a gut-wrenching punch directly into his stomach. Victor collapses to the ground, begging for some mercy, but the cruel knight is not yet finished. He continues cursing Victor with every single painful hit, while Garrick and Ulpies simply stand by, enjoying the cruel spectacle as if it were some entertainment. Victor cries out in unbearable pain, but it does nothing to move them. That is when Viscount Paul suddenly rushes onto the bloody scene, demanding that the knights halt their assault at once. Garrick instantly recognizes the man approaching them. It is Paul Hack's son, the Viscount of the house himself. Paul hurries over to the injured Victor's side, catching him in his arms as the poor man lies unconscious, bruised and brutally battered, with fury boiling in his eyes. The old man demands to know, what kind of knights would assault innocent civilians like this, especially when his own estate has already done far worse to House Lionblood? And what Victor did is absolutely nothing in comparison to that. Jarek steps forward and announces that the Marquis Lionblood has formally demanded the presence of Damian Haxon. He coldly warns them to hand over the young master, or else the lands of House Haxon will suffer a terrible fate. The Viscount had expected some kind of retaliation, but not on such a grand and violent scale. Still, Paul stands his ground firmly, calling it nothing but a bluff. He declares that he will not hand over his own son, no matter what. In fact, he is absolutely certain that even if he did, the Lionbloom family would still reduce their estate to ashes, with a quiet, yet completely defiant smile. The old man looks Garrick directly in the eye and makes it clear he refuses to surrender his son to them. Garrick, gritting his teeth in anger, says that the old fool will surely regret that decision. But it seems they have now left House Lionbloom's knights, with no other viable choice in the matter. Garrick gives the final order to his underlings to destroy everything, until that coward Damian finally shows his face. The Viscount shouts for them to stop, but a chilling, cold voice suddenly cuts through the chaos, asking if the vermin before him have completely lost their minds. Everyone immediately freezes as a dark, purplish, toxic aura seeps in from out of nowhere. Garrick turns, sensing the immense, overwhelming pressure, but has no clue who the man behind that monstrous energy could be. Meanwhile, Ulpies and Lavender are paralyzed on the spot. Damian's crushing aura has them completely frozen stiff, unable to even lift a single, trembling finger. With calm, measured steps, Damian walks in and kneels beside Victor, checking to see if his loyal servant is still breathing. A single, quick glance is all it takes to ignite his rage. His voice is sharp, yet completely controlled. Damian tells the knights that they are lucky Victor is so tough, because if he had died, Damian would have ended every last one of them, right here. Without any hesitation, Garrick stiffens at the sheer weight of that threat. He finally begins to put the pieces together. This man, this overwhelming and terrifying presence, could only be the infamous Damian Haxon. And clearly, he has the audacity to defy the Marquis himself. Garrick simply scoffs and confirms to himself that Damian is just some deranged, crazed madman who is far too full of himself. Or maybe he thinks the kid has just gone a bit too arrogant after pulling off some cheap parlor trick to be noble. Either way, the blonde gorilla has had more than enough. He snaps furiously at his underlings, ordering them to shatter Damian's legs and make him kneel before him. Without hesitation, Ulpies and Lavender march forward in perfect deadly sync, ready to carry out their given command. But in a blinding flash, Damian whips out his own blade, meeting their combined attacks with flawless, deadly precision. Steel clashes against steel, and sparks fly through the air. The ace is not backing down for a second. In fact, he has been looking forward to testing out the mana he has been gathering, with a destructive energy technique now coursing through his very veins. Damian is only just getting started on them. Our hero does not waste a single second. He grabs Lavender's arm and twists it with a brutal, sickening force, making the foolish knight scream out in pure agony. Then comes a solid, crushing punch straight to his chest, launching him across the yard like a piece of discarded garbage. Damian smirks, never expecting the guinea pigs to simply line up and come directly to him so willingly. Seeing his partner so easily wrecked, Ulpies rushes in to take his own shot, but he is met with a sharp, swift kick to the chin that sends him flying through the air like worthless trash. Damian is not holding back at all. He is out here, ready to use his abilities to their absolute fullest. Garrick, the Lion Bloom family's official commanding knight, steps onto the scene, heading directly for Damian. He is shocked to see this man not falling for Lord Irwin's cheap tricks. Still, it does not sit right with him how Damian practically crushed Ulpies. Those incredible skills are not something Garrick ever expected him to have. Damian brushes it off, saying there is no need to go that deep. But Garrick suddenly shifts into this overly dramatic mode, as if all of the puzzle pieces have just clicked into place for him. Damian is completely and utterly confused by this, and that's when this blonde gorilla of a knight claims that Damian is not actually Damian Hackson, but is, in fact, an imposter. His father, Viscount Hackson, still holding the unconscious Victor, is completely stunned by such a wild and insane accusation, thrown even deeper into a state of confusion. Even Damian looks completely disgusted that this gorilla, Brain Knight, could possibly think he's foolish enough to pull such a stunt. But the blonde gorilla continues his frantic yelling, saying that Damian must stop with his pathetic lie, that he is not the kind of man who would fall for such traps, and that this is clearly just a setup by the field dogs to stop the glorious Lion Blooms from rising to power. The man continues going on and on about it, insisting that Damian is not the real Damian Hackson. And honestly, this entire rant is starting to get boring for Damian. He calls him a fake, a complete poser, just some hired hand that was sent to take down Lord Irwin and to drag the good name of House Lionbloom through the dirt. Garrick begins to reach for his menacing sword, calling them all a pack of insignificant dogs for throwing mud at the glorious Lionblooms and for daring to mess with them in the first place. Damian cannot believe that this King Kong wannabe has a brain the size of a pinball. Lavender is still lying on the ground, pretending to be knocked out just to stay out of the whole mess. Viscount Hackson calls out worriedly to his son, while Victor quietly prays for Lord Damian's victory against Garrick. That is when Garrick pulls out his sword and charges at Damian, probably aiming to chop his head clean off his shoulders. No doubt he can tell this fake Damian has some serious skills, but he figures that the guy's luck has finally run out. The old fool has it all perfectly planned out. Once Damian gets just a single half-step closer to him, the very moment he is within his attack range, in the blink of an eye, he is going to split him in two. With that thought, Garrick swings his massive blade right at Damian's neck, ready to slice it completely in half. But Damian dodges it with incredible speed, flashing a confident smirk. He knows that the Lion Blooms did not send a mere clown this time. They sent a real, official knight. The gorilla cannot believe this poser just easily parried his thrust, but he brushes it off, thinking it must have been just a lucky fluke. The knight is furious, seeing the poser deflect all of his attacks, so he charges furiously at Damian once again, this time unleashing a massive wave of fire. With his strike, he shouts at the lad to try blocking this one, daring him to handle something with some real, intense heat. Damian stands there, cool and completely unbothered, blocking the attacks as if they were nothing but a puff of hot air. He mocks the blonde gorilla for being far too slow for such a big guy, and that single comment pushes Garrick completely over the edge. But now, it is Damian's turn to attack. He whips out his own sword and dashes forward at full blinding speed, aiming directly for Garrick's unprotected forehead. Damian is so unbelievably fast that Garrick can barely even see him, let alone have time to react to his attacks. In a single blink, Damian lands a solid, crushing kick to his face, sending him rolling across the ground like a piece of worthless trash. The big, burly guy is now down, catching his breath, while Damian coolly says that kick was for Victor. Garrick struggles to pull himself back up, using his now bloodied arm for some much-needed support, and he mutters a stream of curses under his breath. In no time at all, he charges at Damian once again, his sword now blazing with an intense fire. But even his ultimate lion's mighty sword of speed does not shake Damian's overwhelming confidence. The ace meets his attack head-on, letting the sharp tip of his blade collide with Garrick's. The resulting impact shatters Garrick's sword into a spray of metal shards, leaving his jaw hanging open mid-run. And before he can even begin to react, Damian's sword drives directly into his unprotected shoulder, slicing it clean off in a single fluid motion. Garrick's mind was completely losing it under the intense pain with his mouth. Coughing up blood, the man drops lifelessly to the ground. The Viscount and Victor cannot believe Damian's strength to be able to beat an official knight. Garrick whines that it is hurting, but he applies some warm pressure to his gruesome wound. Right then, Damian slides his blade even closer to this gorilla's face, threatening to chop his head clean off. Pretty quickly, this old fool begins begging for his pathetic life, not knowing who he has just messed with. Damian tells him outright that he is, in fact, Damian Hack's son, saying that he should have begged for his life much, much earlier. Now, it is a little too late, when he messed with his beloved family and made his ugly servant even uglier. Now, this pathetic begging session will not work. Garrick begs for forgiveness for what happened to him earlier. Damian is not at all impressed by the way he is apologized. It is not his personal style. So, the ace simply turns away and leaves the blonde-haired fool to his father and to Victor, who both look more than ready to beat the living crap out of it. The official knight of the powerful Lion Bloom family. Garrick, along with both of his sidekicks, Ulpies and Lavender, is walking out in pure, utter shame. Their bodies are completely wrecked, all thanks to a guy named Damian Hack's son, who even went so far as to slice off Garrick's hand. It turns out Damian gave his not-so-pretty servant Victor his full and complete permission to beat them all to a bloody pulp. Victor still did not feel completely and utterly satisfied, and he wondered if he could possibly land a few more solid hits. But Damian had told him that if he went any further, Garrick would most definitely and certainly die. Victor casually suggested just cutting off another limb or two instead, since Garrick already looked so close to crying. The old fool was dragging himself away like some horror struck wreck, and Damian was honestly beginning to like the idea of treating Garrick like their personal toy. Just then, Viscount Hack's son stepped in and told Damian that it was more than enough. Right on cue, Garrick landed directly at the Viscount's feet, admitting that he was completely and totally in the wrong, and apologizing for all of the disrespect he had shown it. However, Paul is not about to let it slide that easily. The old man says that this gorilla's apology had better be worth something, after all of the chaos that he has caused. He points out that if his son did not possess this level of strength, their entire territory could have been completely wiped out. On top of that, the Marquis family would have dragged them all out by their limbs and would have made them all suffer badly. Garrick slams his head directly into the ground, bowing and desperately begging them for their forgiveness. He pleads for their mercy, but Viscount Hackson's anger is not cooling down. With just a single, quick glance for Paul, Damian finally slides his blade back into his protective case, saying that he was not actually planning on killing this piece of trash. He knows that taking Garrick's life would completely mess up their relationship with House Lionbloom and would tear their ties completely apart. Honestly, Damian admits that if it were just him alone, he would not hesitate to take on the entire Marquis family by himself, no matter what the odds were. But he cannot afford to act so solo when he has his own beloved family to think about first. And he's not that stupid either. He is well aware that if he sends these dunderheads back like this, they will definitely try to retaliate in the future. Now, it is just plain tiresome to have to figure out what to do with this troublesome trio. Then, out of absolute nowhere, Lady Agnes comes running in, calling out to Damian and demanding to know what is going on. The ace is completely thrown off guard by her sudden appearance, but then it hits him. Lady Agnes might actually be useful right now, so he quickly fills her in on the entire mess, and she gets the picture. Once she fully understands Damian's personal concerns, this beautiful paladin is fully on board to back him up. Damian asks her if she's got any clever ideas up her sleeve, and she pauses for a moment. Then, thanks House Hackson for successfully taking down one of Yulon's executive officers for the very first time ever. That is certainly no small feat. With that incredible win, Lady Agnes figures that she can officially recognize House Hackson as an allied household, which honestly does ease Damian's worried mind a little bit. Not to mention, Viscount Hackson and Victor exchange a knowing glance, both of them realizing that if this plan actually works out, their entire family might just be able to dodge a major crisis. Meanwhile, Damian is pulling his absolute best puppy-eyed look, trying to charm Lady Agnes into accepting his humble request, asking if she can really and truly make it happen. The girl is clearly and visibly dazzled by him, and is totally and completely ready to grant him the favor. Deep down, this wicked, Smooth-talking man had been aiming for something like this all along. Protection from the Holy Church. In the back, Paul and Victor watched their son's little flirtatious game work like magic on the beautiful, noble lady. Lady Agnes agrees to Damian's heartfelt request without a second thought. With that, Damian makes sure that everyone can hear him loud and clear, ordering that this matter be reported to House Lionbloom immediately. He tells the troublesome trio of knights to go back now and to inform their boss that House Haxton is now under the official protection of the church. The ace straight up said that if they tried to use force again, the church would hit them with absolutely everything they've got. Damian shoots a single, deathly glare at those pathetic scumbags, giving them one final, silent warning without saying another word. Then he tells them all to get the heck out of there right away. Garrick and his two pathetic sidekicks, Ulpies and Lavender, dash towards the main exit like their lives depend on, thanking Damian for his incredible mercy as they all flee. The whole thing fires up Victor's spirits, and he begins to mock them, saying that they all got extremely lucky today. He is clearly and visibly thrilled to see how Damian's immense strength made those brutes run off with their tails tucked between their legs. Now, they can all finally catch their breath and relax a little bit. However, Paul is not so sure about that just yet. He reminds them all that they still need to figure out what happens next. For now, he decides to hold a family meeting to discuss everything further. Once the key players have assembled, the critical meeting commences. Paul opens the floor briefly, addressing the monumental task of handling their feud with House Lionbloom, a conflict that has now become a dire threat. Abel, looking like he's cosplaying a royal scholar, turns to his father, questioning why this summit is even necessary. After all, they are now shielded by the Holy Church. He fails to grasp the need to worry about this feud in the slightest, not when they have such a powerful guardian watching over them. That said, the gentle Louise interjects, and she points out that they cannot realistically expect the church to completely shield them or intervene when matters become truly serious. Upon reflection, Paul has to agree with his daughter's wisdom. He carefully explains that the church typically refrains from deep involvement in the affairs of nobles, especially conflicts that could ignite a massive political firestorm. Besides, the true, terrifying power of a Lionbloom family is not derived solely from their military might. No, it runs far, far deeper than that. The Viscount is painfully aware of the power dynamics they face. They are pitted against the Lionblooms, who could utterly annihilate smaller noble houses like theirs in countless ways, should they so choose. Contemplating the most prudent course of action, he concludes that their most realistic option is a monetary settlement, a substantial sum to shield House Hack's son from any further conflict. If that should fail, their only other option is to seek the protection of another high-ranking noble house, one powerful enough to defy the Lionbloom's influence. Lady Agnes listens to Paul's logic and concedes that realistically, seeking the sanctuary of another great house is likely their most secure and safest path. Still, she chooses to speak up, suggesting that there may be yet another option. Without a moment's hesitation, she presents her favorite idea, making Damian a holy paladin. She claims that if he joins their ranks, it would instantly resolve every single one of their problems. Damian's expression says everything. He has had more than enough of this absurd proposal. He certainly did not expect this to be brought up during such a grave and serious family discussion, but it is already far too late for that. With every person in the room now staring at him, awaiting his answer, Damian bluntly rejects the entire idea. Paul does not attempt to pressure him either. He honors his son's choice and considers the matter closed. On the other hand, Abel is clearly seething at the very mention of it. Suddenly, the nerdy brother slams the table, demanding his father's undivided attention. When Paul finally turns to face him, Abel questions why he so easily accepted Damian's quick refusal. He passionately argues that if Damian just became a paladin, all of their troubles would simply vanish. But it is painfully obvious that Abel is attempting to sabotage his brother, forcing him down a path that would ensure they would never clash again. Damian sees right through Abel's pathetic scheme, running his mouth and meddling in affairs that are none of his concern. Damian is utterly disgusted by this worthless punk. Abel catches the contemptuous look on his face and snaps, asking what is wrong with that nasty, hateful expression. The little nerd then shifts all of the blame onto Damian, claiming this entire catastrophe happened because of him, so he had better take full responsibility since it's all his fault. Abel demands that Damian become a paladin and fix everything. But before he can continue his rant, Paul silences him with a gaze so lethal it could stop a charging bull, reminding him there is still a guest present. He commands him to sit down and act with a shred of dignity. That shuts Abel up with incredible speed. Without a doubt, Paul agrees that Damian's actions did spark this feud with the Lion Blooms, but he also knows it is not entirely his son's fault. Then, Paul drops the real, unvarnished truth. Lion Bloom's second son held vile, lustful intentions towards Louise. The old man knows that if Damian had not intervened, that monster would not have backed down so easily. In short, his son stood up to protect Louise, in the place of a powerless father who was unable to act. Marilda and Louise quietly comfort the distraught Paul, seeing the immense weight of the burden he carries. Just then, the proud figure of Viscount Hackson stands tall. He walks over and places a firm hand on Damian's shoulder, telling him that he performed admirably today. The old man is genuinely and deeply proud of his son for defending the family's sacred honor, for standing tall against the grave insult to their house, and for giving those arrogant thugs exactly what they deserve. That single moment sparks a profound warmth in Damian's heart, something he never in his life expected to feel. He quietly says it was simply something that had to be done. Paul decides to take charge of the situation for the time being, asking everyone to let him act as their father, just this once. But at that very moment, the butler enters with news that someone from House Gold, Pixie, has just arrived. Paul has no idea what business they could possibly have with him. It turns out their young master, Damian, borrowed money using the family's wheat fields as collateral, and a strict repayment deadline has already passed them by. The true bombshell, the deed to the fields, has already been sold. Damian is caught completely and utterly off guard, never expecting his fortunes to take such a disastrous turn. Paul's face turns a dark shade of crimson, his rage building rapidly, and in a fit of pure, uncontrollable fury, he grabs Damian by the throat and begins to choke him, cursing his very name and his existence. One man lifts his hat in a gesture of respect to show his reverence to the young Master Damian. He wishes him a pleasant day. Damian squints. The man's face is vaguely and distantly familiar. It's Alan Demisure, the West Branch manager of Dash and Cash. He stands beside his towering personal bodyguard. It has been a significant time since they last met, but Alan is here today on official business. He has shown up right on the repayment date they had previously agreed to. This wicked man casually produces the contract that young Master Damian himself had signed. He reminds him that he agreed to use his family's land as collateral. He flashes a smug, condescending smile, saying that is how he could assure Damian that he would receive the money in the first place. Then, with a silky smooth tone, he presents the official paperwork to finalize the transaction. He calls it nothing more than a simple formality. He tells Damian there is no need to worry himself at all, as if everything is perfectly and completely under control. The old man snaps back, exclaiming that someone of such a low and common birth could never take land from a noble. Meanwhile, Damian begins to piece the memories together, finally and truly remembering that Holland is the very same man who manipulated him into handing over the land deed in the first place. He cannot help but question what possibly made him agree to such a thing. Looking the manipulative man in the eye, Damian asks how much he actually owes him. Allen calmly replies that he had borrowed 200 gold coins, and with the added interest, the total now comes to 300 gold. That massive sum sends powerful shockwaves through Damian's brain, making his jaw practically slam into the floor. He stares at Allen in complete and utter disbelief, asking if that number is actually and truly correct. Allen, with that same smug and infuriating calmness, simply tells him to go ahead and read the contract for himself. Damian struggles to even remember why he had borrowed the money in the first place. It feels as if it all happened ages and ages ago. But one thing he knows for absolute certain is that their family does not have that kind of gold just lying around at this alarming rate. He is convinced he is about to drag his entire household into poverty, left to beg for coins on the street like filthy, homeless, and forgotten barbarians. His family would be tossed into the streets with absolutely nothing to eat, and the very thought of it completely crushes Damian. Allen then coldly declares that if the debt is not paid by today, the land that was used as collateral will officially become the property of Dash and Cash. Damian immediately fires back, reminding him that he had said the collateral was just a simple formality. Allen, still calm and unbearably smug, admits that he did say that, but things have since changed. Duke Goldpixie has ordered them to collect on all of their outstanding debts, with no exceptions whatsoever. It does not matter if it is from nobles or commoners. He then advises Damian to go and gather the money, and he casually asks if he even has that kind of immense sum. Damian, stunned down to his very core, confesses that he has not prepared anything for the repayment. That is the exact, precise answer Allen was hoping for. Deep down inside, he is absolutely thrilled, though he maintains a fake look of concern for the young master. With a lazy air, he drops onto the couch as if he owns the place. He says that Damian should have thought twice before ever borrowing money in the first place. Then he snaps his fingers, and two towering, gorilla-like bodyguards step forward. They lock their deadly, piercing stares on Damian. Alland insists on handling the situation in his own way. He is now fully aware that Damian cannot repay the debt on his own. As much as he truly loves collecting money, what he truly and deeply enjoys are moments just like this. Watching arrogant, prideful nobles fall to their very knees, groveling, utterly humiliated, and licking his very shoes. Now, Alland is practically buzzing with raw excitement, just imagining what kind of face Damian will make for him next. The thought alone sends a powerful chill down his spine. It is the kind of thrilling spectacle he truly lives for. Meanwhile, in a totally and completely different vibe, Marilda and Louise are casually and calmly sipping tea, while the Viscount is pacing around the room like a complete madman, eaten up by stress. Abel is sulking on the sidelines, probably cursing his very own existence by now. At this point, Marilda gently offers the Viscount a seat, telling him to rest before he ends up carving a hole in the ground. With all of that frantic and pointless pacing, even Louise tells her dear father to calm down just a little. But the old man is at his absolute limit. He is practically pulling his hair out in pure frustration, burdened by the terrible disaster his sons have dragged them into. Paul is on the very verge of losing his own mind, knowing full well that they cannot simply just sit around when their entire family's future is hanging by a thread. Marilda casually and calmly sips her own tea, calm as ever, and she tells them all to just trust in Damian. He has taken the matter into his own very capable hands, and all that they can do for now is simply wait. Even Louise confidently backs him up, saying Damian has never let them down whenever he has stepped forward. The Viscount knows that is completely true, but he also wisely points out that it is only because his swordsmanship is absolutely top tier. Still, combat skills and negotiation skills are two completely and entirely different things. Just as he says that, in a flash, Damian proves himself once again. He slams Alland's bodyguards face directly into the hard ground, with a brutal force hard enough to crack the very floor beneath them. Alland is completely and totally stunned by what has just happened, frozen with shock as powerful chills run down his spine. After knocking out those two hulking King Kongs, Damian knows full and well that his father is going to flip out and start yelling at him again, especially since they had only just repaired that very wall. The remaining bodyguard does not waste any time drawing his blade, and he lunges at Damian with a hateful curse, clearly aiming to slice his head completely off. But Damian does not even flinch. He smoothly and easily catches the man mid-strike, grabbing him by the throat and choking him right then and there. He glares, insulted that some pathetic scumbag dared to draw a weapon on a noble. He calmly calls it an act of self-defense. Now that he has a completely valid excuse, Damian turns back to Alland with a nasty and wicked smirk, making the man squirm uncomfortably as Damian steps ever closer. He tells him to go ahead and loosen up his legs, and Alland obeys him like a frightened little puppy. Damian drops his aggressive posture for a second and speaks civilly, saying that he cannot make the payment at this moment. Alland, completely and totally rattled now, has no issue whatsoever with that anymore. Then, Damian grips his shoulder with a crushing tightness, leaning in and saying he would like to pay him back in another way. Alland feels a cold, terrified sweat forming, the chilling sensation in his spine growing ever worse. He is completely terrified of what is coming for him next. The very next day, Abel gloomily tells his father that violence has won out over justice, and that the truth of it alone completely breaks his heart. Meanwhile, Miranda and Louise warmly chat with Damian, reminding him to eat well during his trip and to take good care. On his knees, Abel looks up toward the sky and asks God why. But Paul quickly shuts him down, telling the little nerd to cheer for his brother, instead of crying about it like a little baby. Even so, the Viscount is clearly having some second thoughts, wondering if their risky plan will actually work out in the end. Lady Agnes, standing nearby, says it is a pity they must part ways now. Damian thanks her most sincerely for everything that she has done. The beautiful white-haired paladin mentions that their own investigation is very nearly wrapped up now, so they will likely be returning to their own home tomorrow. She wishes him a safe journey, one that is full of blessings, and Damian gives her a sincere and grateful nod. Then she adds, just in case he happens to change his mind. But Damian already knows exactly where she is going with that. He gives her a calm, yet completely firm look, and he assures her that nothing will ever change his mind about what she wants. Afterward, Victor finishes loading up all of Damian's luggage, and with all of the goodbyes now finally done, the young man climbs up into the waiting carriage. Surprisingly, Alland is the one who is accompanying him. Alland assures the ace that he will make sure nothing disrupts their trip. Damian actually likes the sound of that. He gives him a nod of approval for his change in attitude. He even throws in a very casual request. He would like to have a lobster for his lunch. If Alland is really bringing that kind of positive energy, Victor hops into the carriage as well, and with everything now set, the carriage finally begins to roll out. It is heading straight for the house of Gold Pixie. The lavish and ornate carriage pulls over, and the three-man party can finally stretch out their legs. In front of them stands the luxurious and grand ducal mansion. The Gold Pixie family, rumored to be the wealthiest in the entire kingdom, truly and completely lives up to their name. Damian turned to his personal servant, / loan shark, and he thanked him for the very comfortable journey. He could tell that this all-in Dimitri guy was absolutely fuming. To how he was treated like a common dog the entire time they were on the road. With a completely phony and fake smile, he wished the young noble well, while cursing him to the depths of hell. Inwardly, with completely confident strides, it is now time to put Damian's next masterful move into action. He was then directly escorted to request an official audience with a wealthy and powerful sovereign, Adam Gold Pixie, the Duke of the Apple Kingdom. He examined the young brat from the Haxon family with discerning eyes. Of course, our hero behaved formally and politely, like a proper noble should, without wasting any more of their precious time. The Duke asked the young man his reason for this very sudden visit. Damian, quite frankly, confessed that he had borrowed money from the dukedom's loan company, and the final date of repayment was now fast approaching. He also disclosed that he does not have the money to pay the debt off. With that in his mind, he wanted to propose another way to settle the bill, instead of simply paying them in cash. He wanted to pay by representing the Gold Pixie Dukedom, to defeat the Lion Bloom family once and for all. The Duke seemed quite intrigued, while his entire inner circle was completely taken aback. Adam Gold Pixie chortled at the incredibly sudden proposal. It sounded as if the young man has done his homework, and he came to him after hearing some very interesting rumors. While within the entire Apple Kingdom, the hottest gossip circulating around is the recent development on the border between the Lion Bloom Marquisate and the Gold Pixie Dukedom. A large, prosperous gold mine was recently discovered there, making it a major point of contention. The two noble families have been bitter rivals for a very long time. Now, the discovery of these riches is the final breaking point. They are now preparing for a duel between their low-class knights to settle their generational beef and to determine the rightful ownership of the lucrative mine. In Damian's past and tragic life, the outcome was quite a definitive one. The duel would end in Lion Bloom's complete and utterly overwhelming victory at the hands of their powerful rising star. Afterward, the proud Lion Bloom Marquis would leverage the vast wealth extracted from the gold mine to rapidly and quickly expand its incredible power. In sharp contrast, the Gold Pixie Dukedom would slowly lose its influence. To sum it all up, helping the Duke win this upcoming match will be akin to killing two birds with just one stone. Not only can Damian finally pay his debt, but he can also keep those vile Lion Bloom bastards in check. Adam Gold Pixie was immediately drawn to the young man's boldness. He had also heard the recent rumors about the Hack son heir taking down the second son of the powerful Lion Bloom family and crushing a major crime enterprise in the city of Landwalk. Those grand accomplishments certainly boost his own credibility, so there's certainly no need to deny them at all. His arrival is just perfectly right on time. Currently, the Duke has been having a very hard time finding a suitable knight for the upcoming duel anyway. Damian confidently declared that he was the absolute perfect candidate, dubbing himself as the only low-class knight in existence who can stand toe-to-toe against the powerful Lion Bloom heir. Saying that he could defeat Michael Lion Bloom is quite a daring claim. He is known throughout the land as a generational genius. After all, while there is no denying that the kid is very impressive, Damian is a whole other kind of beast. But while he was busy selling himself as the rightful representative, one of the Duke's own personal knights butted in to oppose his claims, based on what he calls exaggerated rumors. Besides Lady Chelsea, the Gold Pixie is still on the road, trying to find a suitable candidate. This middle-class knight, Ernst Torwitz, is not even trying to hide his disdain for Damian. It has been an entire month since the Grand Duchess Chelsea ventured out to find a knight who could cut down Michael Lion Bloom. Her loyal supporters are confident that she will be able to pull it off. Torwitz continued, trying to dissuade the Duke from disregarding his own daughter's efforts, telling him to simply trust the process. Duke Adam listened closely to his knight and accepted the undeniable validity of his words. Damian suddenly felt an overwhelming itch to strangle this skinny knight for spoiling his triumphant moment. He looks just like a chewed-up bone that an orc has just spat out. He values the sage advice of all of his retainers, so he asked Damian to go ahead and defend his proposal. For this specific scenario, he will just have to show his qualifications through his very actions for the maximum possible effect. So, he boldly blurted out that not picking him would be a massive mistake. If Gold Pixie truly wants to win the upcoming duel, Damian is the only single right choice to make. Whoever the Grand Duchess manages to bring back will not even compare to back up his own incredible claim. He challenged the skinny knight to a little friendly contest. Horwitz should take up his blade, and Damian will simply block his strike. If he can manage to block an attack from a mid-class knight, then that should be more than enough proof that he is the real deal. It was a completely successful rage bait. Horwitz wanted nothing more than to teach this brat a lesson. If the Duke would just give him the permission to do so. Fascinated and incredibly excited, Adam gave them the green light for an official exhibition match. A few moments later, the training ground was prepared to be the venue. The two combatants mean-mugged each other menacingly, while the Duke and his entire posse watched with anticipation. Victor had just arrived, only to find his young master all mixed up with some more bullshit again. He looked over at his boss's opponent, and he could feel the fire of pure rage burning inside the knight. This is exactly what happens when your rage baiting goes too far. The dukedom's own guardian knight, Jael Haymark, stood beside the Duke and presided over the match. When he was given the go-ahead signal, Sir Horwitz stood ramrod straight, like he had to stick up his ass, and he offered the arrogant young man a final chance to kneel and surrender. In a quick response, Damian simply yawned and demanded that they hurry it all up. This little test would be limited to only one decisive strike. The mid-class knight made sure to bring out every bit of mana he had, manipulating the flow to converge directly on his spear's tip. Sensing the dangerous amounts of power that were now coalescing, Damian worries that he might have rage-baited the guy a little too far, with his face grimacing with pure, unadulterated rage. Sir Horwitz aimed his tip at the arrogant bumpkin with a clear killing intent, as fast as a bolt of lightning. He closed the gap while gathering absurd amounts of raw momentum. It was an incredibly impressive opening. But if Damian knows exactly where the strike's path is, blocking it should not be that hard. He raised his sword with a clear, perfect view of the spear's tip, ready to defend himself with a perfect placement. At the very last possible second, Horwitz's spear tip seemingly bent and snaked its way past his defense. It was just a minuscule, slight change in the angle, but it left the young man's entire chest completely wide open. With perfect and flawless precision, his sword crumbled and shattered in half. Upon feeling the powerful sensation of steel fragmenting under his strength, Horwitz knew that the young fool had fallen for his dubious trap. Without a blade to bear the brunt of the powerful attack, the spear tip continued roaring forward until it reached Damian's chest, drawing his crimson blood. The Duke was immediately taken aback, and Victor felt his own stomach turn completely upside down at the horrific sight of his young master's own blood. Much to the surprise of everyone, Damian regained his balance and did not fall to the ground. He certainly looked like he was in some pain, but he remained standing. Horwitz could not believe his own eyes. A mere low-class knight should not have been able to withstand his surprise attack, breaking the deafening silence in the training ground. The young man wiped away his blood with a confident grin and asked the Duke if this was enough proof to give him the representative position he desired. Seeing his master completely safe and still conscious, Victor ran onto the stage and rushed him with a concerned, powerful hug. It was definitely far more painful than the knight's initial spear strike. Damian had to literally wrestle off his loyal and concerned attendant on account of his still bleeding chest wound. The Duke immediately followed after him, pleased with the spectacular show he had just put on for them. Withstanding Horwitz's powerful strike is certainly no easy feat. Frankly, Duke Adam was a little bit skeptical at first, but he just saw for himself how incredibly capable the kid was. He has got a real gem in his very hands. So he turned to his retainers and proudly announced that Damian Hackson, after proving his incredible strength so admirably, shall be appointed as the Gold Pixie family's chosen representative. Horwitz tried to complain about the outcome of the exhibition match, but the Duke quickly and completely shut him up with a sharp glare. Adam is in a very good mood right now. If someone dares to ruin it, who knows what might possibly happen? Horwitz was completely and utterly in shambles. He recalled what had happened in his head over and over again. He was absolutely certain that his attack had landed perfectly cleanly. There's a reason why he has mid in his title and whore in his name. Honestly, Damian, as he is right in this moment, is already far beyond the middle class of the knight's hierarchy, since only low-class knights are permitted to participate. In the upcoming duel, he has to hold back and fake his true level. He had to make sure that his entire performance was convincing, enough to fool absolutely anyone. He had to resort to using a magic shield to defend himself and to dampen the spear's force for a split second. If he had gotten the timing wrong, he could have been in some very real danger. The Duke assessed his overall condition, and he saw some signs of some light internal damage. Duke Adam cannot let his new, prized blade get damaged like this? He tapped his ring and opened his personal subspace storage. A magic item like that must be expensive as hell. The wise Duke retrieved a very ornate box from the subspace, and he offered its valuable contents to Damian as a gift. Inside of the box were 5 little golden balance pills. He had to pay an incredibly high price to get these things from the alchemy school. Knights usually take these very precious pills during their training, but it is also an excellent and powerful remedy for internal injuries. Damian graciously and humbly accepted the gift and extended his gratitude. With that, the Duke cemented their new and budding working relationship. The young Baron's master plan is progressing along very smoothly. The very next day had come. Damian had spent the night in one of the mansion's very lavish rooms. Today, he came to check out all of the training facilities. He was quite surprised at the amazing efficacy of the balance pills. His internal injuries from the day before had practically healed overnight. He did not have the time to look around properly yesterday, but as he expected of the powerful Duke's household, they have got top-notch, state-of-the-art training equipment everywhere. Coming to this place was absolutely the right call. Now, he gets to train to his heart's content using some good shit, while he was admiring the impressive and extensive weapon rack. Someone with a high-pitched, squeaky voice called out his name in an incredibly arrogant and condescending tone. He looked ahead to see a shorty who had to stand on top of a platform, just to be able to reach the very same height as him. When he asked him what was up, some douchebag by the name of Pavel Vermeulen, a low-class knight of the Gold Pixie Dukedom, flashily and pompously introduced himself. As for the 2 absolute goons behind him, they are his so-called sworn brothers. These 3 were also specially selected to participate in the upcoming match against the dreaded Lion Blooms. Pavel claimed that they were out training in the field just yesterday, so they were not around to have to witness the complete shit show. He arrogantly claimed that if they had actually been there, they would have stepped in and would have easily dispatched Damian, instead of having to get Sir Horowitz himself involved. Pavel sees the upcoming duel with Lion Bloom as a matter of great honor for their entire house. Now, they can only hope that an outsider's completely mediocre skills will not drag the entire team down. With that having been said, Shorty warned Damian to never, ever interrupt their intense training. He quietly walked away, since he preferred to be training on his own anyway. In addition to that, he is quite curious about the true level of skill his teammates possess. Now is his chance to be able to see them all in action. After quickly and clumsily getting into their starting positions, Pavel gave his brothers the go-ahead signal with a loud, obnoxious hurrah, leading the 3 pathetic stooges. Pavel Vermand gets into his flag-style, immovable king technique. He looked just like he was trying to hold in his own piss. On the opposing corner, the lanky one performed his own secret technique, the Vermilion Bird Ascension, though it would be much more fitting to call it an awkward chicken jump. The 2 of them bumped their wooden swords with little to no actual impact. They looked completely and deathly serious, for this was their 987th duel. For a bunch of complete noobs with such weak-ass techniques, they seem to really think that they are the main characters here. After breaking off from their completely shitty stalemate, Pavel grabbed the chance to wave his own sword around completely randomly, in hopes of landing just one single strike against his buddy. Lanky had to matrix dodge his way out of the chaotically sweeping sword strikes. As soon as the wild and frantic swings finally died down, he grabbed the opportunity to completely turn the tables. With all of his might, he struck down hard with his wooden blade, and he landed a clean, solid hit directly on Pavel's head. With his own eyes now closed, when he finally opened his eyes, he was in complete and utter awe of Brother Pavel's genius plan. Lanky got it into his head that Shorty had somehow seen through his attack, and had blocked it masterfully with his own forehead. Look at this absolute dude bleeding and crying out in pain. He is definitely some kind of a mastermind. They broke off their fight and gave their due respects to each other. Pavel tried his very best to stay completely conscious while insisting that this entire round was a complete and total draw. Afterward, Fatty walked up onto the stage for his own turn at a spar, and Pavel stammered that he just needed to take a little bit of a break first. There's only a single month left until the official duel, and they somehow really think that this pathetic type of training will actually make them strong enough to sweep right through the powerful Lion Bloom Knights. To protect the sacred honor of the Duke's house, they raised their puny, little wooden swords and shouted their corny, all for one and one for all chant. At this pitiful rate, these 3 are on a direct track to being humiliated by the Lion Bloom Knights. Off to the side, Damian quietly watched with a continuously worsening and dark expression. He was so incredibly focused on securing his own spot as a representative that he did not even take his would-be teammates into account. Now, he is feeling a growing sense of impending doom upon seeing the complete clowns he has to share a stage with. He might have been as powerful as an actual god in his past life. He had served as the blade that brought the entire world to its ruin. Yet, these 3 absolute idiots make him feel completely and utterly powerless. spirits, having secured a powerful new champion for the coming duel. He's still chuckling over the epic showdown between his guardian knight and that audacious young pup from the night before. After the trial by combat with Sir Horwitz, Duke Adam had summoned Damian to his private chambers, offering him the personal tutelage of Jael Heinrich himself. But the young maverick had politely turned him down, insisting that he would forge his own path. A full night has passed since that moment, and the Duke still can't contain his amusement. This Damian Hickson is a truly fascinating character, being his most trusted advisor. He probes his guardian knight for a true assessment of Damian. Sir Heinrich, ever the stoic warrior, gives the young man a sky-high rate. He was the only one to witness the kid manipulate raw mana for a split second to deflect Horwitz's deadly spear thrust, a feat of control that is almost completely unheard of. But as for their odds against the legendary Michael Lionblood, the future remains shrouded in complete uncertainty, since 3 champions will be chosen to fight in the duel. The first team to secure 2 victories will win the entire match. Even if Damian Hackson manages to secure a win, it's no guarantee that they will win at all. To achieve victory, the rest of their local knights must perform well, too. That is why they are currently training under Sebastian Vincenzo, a supposedly capable middle-class knight. The Duke believes there's no need to worry, given Sebastian's esteemed capabilities. But if you were to ask Damian, he would tell you that this local squad is a complete and utter lost cause. He's watched them fooling around and calling it their training. They are all incredibly and hopelessly stupid. Their physical stamina is pure, hot garbage. They practice a swordsmanship that is all flash and absolutely no substance. They have no drip and absolutely no game, with a heavy sense of reluctance. He knows he has no other choice but to intervene to prevent a stain on his perfect record. So he summoned the 3 stooges over to him, all while strapping on his own ridiculously heavy handicap weights. He then challenged them all to a friendly spar. With a cocky, arrogant grin, Pavel, the short-statured one, praised his guts for daring to challenge them. Even after he had witnessed their impeccable skills, he arrogantly volunteered to go up against him first. Damian simply looked at the pipsqueak like he was a complete dumbass. He could not afford to waste his precious time whipping them one by one. It would be far better if they just came at him all at once, while he was still wearing his Rock Lee-style weights. Of course, this mega challenge completely shattered the pride of the 3 stooges. To demonstrate their incredible stupidity even further, they all tossed their wooden swords to the side, thinking they could simply overwhelm Damian with their bare hands, even though it goes against the very code of chivalry. The 3 fools jumped into action with a synchronized, pathetic attack, with their angry, clenched fists just inches away from him. Damian was not in the least bit threatened by them. 5 minutes later, Pavel awoke, completely and utterly discombobulated. He's lying flat on the floor while staring up at the ceiling, snapping out of his daze. He racked his brain, desperately trying to remember what in the hell had just happened. A few meters away from him were Lanky and Fatty, who were still sleeping soundly, just like little babies. As Damian had thought, this group was simply pathetic. In combat, by his side, Victor is stressed out over his young master, which is about to cause another huge scene. The last thing that Pavel remembers is jumping into the fray, alongside his boys, launching a multi-angle combined assault. After forcing himself to remember what had transpired afterwards, he recalled some bits and pieces of what had really happened. First, Damian nonchalantly moved his head out of Fatty's pathetic attack. Then, he let Lanky hit nothing but the empty air, leading to a complete and total loss of his balance. With 2 quick, expert chops to the back of both of their necks, he dropped the 2 goons to the mat without any trouble at all, since the side characters were now out for the count. The delusional Shorty was literally left hanging in the air. He braced himself for the coming impact, trying to sneak a single, lucky punch in, but he was met with a brutal uppercut to the chin instead, just to add some more salt to his already wounded pride. Damian followed this up with another, even more brutal strike. He unleashed a devastating barrage of attacks, as if he were juggling a total noob in a classic fighting game, breaking and dislocating every single bone in Pavel's little body. It was then that his mind simply broke and he blacked out everything. The outsider had truly and utterly overpowered the pride and joy of the dukedom's entire knightly order. What kind of a monster can possibly do that at the low-class knight level without even breaking a single tiny drop of sweat? After whipping them all into proper shape, Damian had essentially beaten the 3 of them into complete submission. When he asked them who their current instructor was, Pavel stuttered out the name of Sir Sebastian Vincenzo. Damian could not believe that someone at the respected middle-class level had trained a bunch of kids to be so incredibly pathetic. Honestly, they would be far better off ditching that lousy-ass teacher. But there is no need to start any unnecessary drama. So, to supplement their current trashy education, Damian demanded that the 3 of them come to him to spar. After their formal training every single day, Pavel worries that if Sir Vincenzo were to find out about such an arrangement, the knight might take it completely the wrong way. Fortunately, Damian is so well-versed in beating people up that he can do it without leaving a single solitary mark or injury. Come to think of it, Shorty clearly felt his bones breaking and being dislocated while he was getting completely and utterly thrashed. Yet, he somehow awoke without a single scratch on him. You see, Damian learned how to beat people up in a very specific way, back in his fearsome Death Knight days. Long ago, there was a man who had traveled the continent, making a living with what he called criminal reformation. He was widely and famously known as the character corrector. His particular method was very crude and brutally simple. Inmates that misbehaved got their asses handed to them. He would beat them up for an entire hour straight. If that did not work, he would simply double the beating time. Rumor has it that he had once beaten a criminal continuously for 512 hours straight, over a long period of time. The character corrector began to feel a sense of pity for the criminals he left, bloodied and mangled. Instead of simply quitting his job, he devised a unique technique to beat someone up endlessly, without ever endangering their actual lives. With countless hours of practice on these poor, unfortunate criminals, he had reached a true mastery over the bizarre technique he called the stick of my kill. It is just one of the many techniques that Damian had picked up in his previous and tragic past life. Inflicting unbearable amounts of pain without leaving a single tiny scratch is quite a useful skill in times just like these. Today, he made the Three Stooges face the fact that they are just pathetic worms, but there is no need to worry about that. They have a whole month to turn those worms into something else. Within that particular time frame, Damian will make sure that they all become something incredibly useful. The Three Stooges could feel a very painful month coming their way. Before they could get back to their training for the day, the Duke's personal attendant interrupted them with some great urgency. He came running in to inform Damian that he was being summoned by Duke Adam himself. Well, his presence had been requested since the Grand Duchess, Chelsea Gold Pixie, had returned straight from her long and arduous travels. She paid her due respects to her powerful father. The Grand Duchess bent her knee with a strapping, powerful knight alongside her. There was no one more pleased to see her return than Sir Horwitz, even though he was completely and utterly humiliated yesterday. Lady Chelsea has now arrived to correct what has gone wrong. Duke Adam welcomed her back, but with a clear indifference. He asked her if the man behind her is the knight that she had chosen to enter into the upcoming fateful duel. With a confident and incredibly sly smile, she presented the hulking and powerful warrior. At first glance, the Duke did not seem at all impressed. In fact, he looked rather sus. The man stood up, displaying his tall and powerful frame with a roaring, deep voice. He introduced himself to all as Guillaume Blackwing, also known throughout the land as the Wild Beast. Some of the Duke's personal retainers recognized the powerful name. The Wild Beast is a famed and feared free knight. Combat nerds all across the kingdom have heard the tales of what happened when he took part in the bloody Ackland Kingdom's conflict. In a single, epic battle, Guillaume was credited with wiping out every single opposing low-class knight. The streets are saying that there is no match for him at his level. Even the Duke himself had heard the tales about the Wild Beast and his exploits. He was granted that particular nickname for a good reason. For that, Duke Adam's personal interest was now piqued. Lady Chelsea proudly announced that Sir Guillaume had already pledged his undying loyalty to her very name, and had also agreed to participate in the fateful upcoming duel. She is extremely and completely confident that this man would be the answer to their Michael Lionbloom problem. In terms of his sheer reputation alone, Sir Guillaume could be considered a far bigger name. If Michael Lionbloom is a star still in the making, the Wild Beast is already a fully formed supernova. While this would have been absolutely great news a few days ago, Sir Guillaume's arrival is a bit of a major headache for them now. Lady Chelsea did not like seeing her own father hesitate at all. To explain, Duke Adam introduced the young man he had picked for the job as Gold Pixie's personal representative, Sir Damian Hickson. He arrived just in time to Aura Farm and completely stun on everyone. Of course, Lady Chelsea did not like this particular breaking news at all. She has been on the road for an entire whole month, working her ass off just to give the dukedom a fighting shot at winning, only to find out that the important position was already filled without her own knowledge. Looking completely unhinged, she asked Daddy to just change the representative to her own pick so that they could finally square this little mistake away. The Duke maintained a completely neutral and detached stance, and he swore to keep her suggestion in his mind. With her own daddy not backing her up right away, Lady Chelsea threw a complete and total tantrum. She has never even heard of the name Damian Hackson before. She thinks it is only natural to choose someone with a great and vast deal of accomplishments under his belt over a complete and total nobody. Damian does not like being treated like he is some background extra. On the other hand, Sir Guillaume Blackwing is looking at him with some palpable mockery. For some strange reason, The young man picked up a really, truly bad vibe from the wild beast. The Duke listened to his daughter's incessant ravings, and he calmly defended the young man that he had already appointed. He brought up the indisputable fact that Sir Damian was skilled enough to withstand a full, powered and devastating blow from Sir Horwitz. Being reminded of what had just transpired completely shook the toothpick-thin knight. Lady Chelsea finally dropped all of her previous formalities, and she called out her own daddy for always looking for the perfect excuse to undermine her own abilities. Chelsea started babbling on about the Duke's poor treatment of his family, and Adam warned her to watch her tongue in front of all of the guests, preventing herself from completely crossing the line. The Grand Duchess excused her own terrible behavior, citing the fatigue from her long-distance travel as clouding her judgment. Everyone who was in the room could see and feel that the father and the daughter had some very deep-seated and personal issues between them. Declaring the meeting to be over, the Duke quickly dismissed everyone, and he promised to consult all of his retainers before coming up with a final decision on who would ultimately get the job. Out of absolutely nowhere, Sir Guillaume erupted with a boisterous laugh. He dropped all of the previous formalities, and he asserted that there is no point in trying to decide with just words. Offended by such brutish and harsh words against the Duke, Guardian Knight Heinrich almost drew his own blade right then and there. The wild beast continued on by saying that the strongest one should naturally be the one to represent the gold pixie dukedom. They can just keep it nice and simple and find that out right now. Lady Chelsea reprimanded her own knight for speaking so out of turn, when she had specifically told him to just stay quiet for now, knowing that the brute's words do have some truth to them. The Duke asked Damian what he thinks of the thinly veiled challenge. To be frank, all of these little tests are getting quite tiresome. Either way, he is also well aware that the fastest way to resolve the entire situation is by simply showing a little bit of force. So he agreed with Sir Guillaume's previous sentiment, but he proposed that they should settle this dispute without an actual fight. He extended his hand out completely wordlessly, offering a simple and easy contest of just sheer, raw strength. In addition to that, there is something that he would like to, confirmed by touching hands with him once again. Sir Guillaume simply laughed his ass off, and he warned the young man about the dangers of losing his arm. Matching his threats, Damian announced that he would be nice, and would settle for just pulling the brute's entire shoulder out of its rightful and proper place. Feeling offended by all of the intense trash talk, the wild beast pounced at the young man's arm like it owed him money. He moved as fast as he possibly could, and with as much raw intensity as he could possibly muster. But in the end, his whole body got flipped completely upside down in front of everyone watching. Damian showed off his impressive judo skills by taking down an opponent who was much, much bigger than he is. You know you've just done something shocking when even old Heinrich here is at a complete and total loss for words. Sir Horwitz, on the other hand, felt his already sunken and hollow cheeks sink even deeper. Lady Chelsea was much closer to the action than everyone else was, but it had happened so incredibly fast that she could not make any sense of what had just transpired. Sir Heinrich inwardly praised the young man for such a remarkable show of raw skill and finesse with his own veteran vision. He had clearly seen Guillaume go for Damian's hand first, but that young pup had skillfully turned the giant's own raw power against him, flinging him aside like he was just a simple sack of shit. His physical ability is certainly top-notch, but his incredible technique is the aspect to truly watch out for. Instead of accepting his embarrassing loss like a real and true knight, Sir Guillaume quickly and angrily collected himself, while cursing the young man out for completely humiliating it in front of everyone. Damian had already expected this kind of childish reaction, so he decided to fan the raging flames even further, and he snidely remarked that he had unfortunately failed to dislocate the brute's entire shoulder. His vision immediately went dark with pure, unadulterated rage, and the wild beast motioned to draw his fearsome weapon as his own dark mana began to circulate. With dual axes now firmly in his hand, he assumed an offensive stance, ready to slice and dice the young man before him. Lady Chelsea tried desperately to stop her chosen champion, but her words were not reaching his enraged ears anymore. He rushed furiously towards Damian, eager to shred him to bits as painfully as he possibly could, and to split his skull completely open before his dark mana could manifest itself into a full-blown attack. He was interrupted by a much more dominant and powerful power when his mana circulation suddenly stopped. Sir Guillaume immediately knew that someone else had stepped in. Damian simply stood on business, while the dukedom's powerful guardian knight unleashed some of his own energy, angered by the sheer audacity of the complete outsider. Swinging a weapon so carelessly in front of the duke is a grave sin. The guardian knight imposed his will upon the wild beast, and he asked him if he had a secret death wish. Guillaume felt all of his animosity completely melt away, as the old man's immense mana completely suppressed him. Damian was quite impressed with the sheer pressure that the old and powerful knight could muster, just from a completely basic and simple aura release. No wonder he is considered a high-class knight. Out of some respect for Lady Chelsea's personal dignity, the guardian knight would overlook this disrespect just this once. Still, he left him a stern warning that this will be the last and final time the brute can act so callously. He does not believe in giving any second chances. Feeling the cold embrace of the old man's aura finally leaving his body, Guillaume slumped down helplessly to the floor, huffing and puffing for air. With that now settled, the Duke demanded everyone's complete and undivided attention. Judging by what he had just seen from this unruly commotion, it would be best for their entire house to keep Sir Damian as their representative. Once again, Sir Horwitz protested that what had transpired was not a fair match at all. He excused that Sir Guillaume Blackwing had not yet fully recovered from his long travels, giving Damian a very clear and unfair advantage. The young man is now starting to regret not slitting this pathetic toothpick's throat where he had the golden chance. In addition to that, he whined that Sir Guillaume is a knight well-versed in weaponry, and he should not be judged based on a brief hand-to-hand combat test. This time, Lady Chelsea backed his pathetic protest. She argued that they should not be making their decisions based on such childish and petty scuffles. An official and proper duel must happen between the two. The Duke is starting to get extremely irritated by the other camp and for moving their own goalpost. Disappointed and angered by her own daughter's demands, Adam struck his own desk, and he yelled at her for being such an incompetent and foolish brat. Lady Chelsea was completely shaken to her very core. After finally calming down, she stammered out an apology for completely overstepping. The toothpick knight gritted his teeth and bravely held his tongue. On the sidelines, with an awkward silence now hanging in the air, Damian raised his own hand and addressed the powerful Duke. Looking as mischievous as ever, he asked if he could possibly share something with them. Much to the surprise of everyone, he accepted Lady Chelsea's earlier proposal, a formal duel to determine who would be the one to represent the Duke. Since that is his own wish, Duke Adam had no other choice but to relent. Later on that day, Victor is all over his young and powerful master, pestering him about accepting such a needless and risky duel, when all he had to do was simply stay quiet instead of risking a loss, completely ignoring Victor's nagging. They finally arrived at their intended destination, a master workshop that the Duke had personally recommended. Adam Gold Pixie had added a special stipulation to the incoming duel. Since Damian's own long sword had been destroyed during the Horwitz fight, he ought to get a brand new weapon made at the Duke's personal smithy. In all complete honesty, he could probably beat Guillaume to within an inch of his pathetic life with just a simple training sword. But there is absolutely no reason to turn down the Duke's generosity. Free stuff is always free stuff. When they finally entered the workshop, Victor relayed Duke Gold Pixie's personal orders, and he asked him to collect a new blade for the young master. Since the smithy was already notified of their arrival in advance, they were invited into the main arsenal. Inside was a long lineup of high-quality blades in all shapes, forms, and sizes. Even someone like Damian, who had seen a fair and impressive share of legendary weapons, was quite pleased by the amazing workshop's extensive collection. Among all of the glittering, powerful blades displayed in their cases, only one single blade firmly caught his undivided attention. Seeing that he is interested in such a uniquely shaped blade, the owner shared that it was commissioned by a truly valiant knight who was once employed under the Duke's powerful family before the powerful blade was ever finished. He had to leave for some completely unknown reasons. The blade never reached its intended and rightful owner's hands. Interested now, Damian asked if the knight had provided some special resonant steel for the forging process. He asked because the uniquely shaped sword resembles the signature blade of a legendary sword master known as the Sword Maestro. The thing looked just like a tuning fork. The owner was quite shocked that the young man still picked that blade, even after knowing that it was forged with something as notoriously finicky as resonant steel. Unlike many other rare metals that are known to amplify mana, resonant steel has a very different kind of property. It has the unique and special trait of repelling mana and generating waves. When he asked for the blade's official name, the owner tried his very best to remember. The knight who had originally commissioned the odd weapon had dubbed it the Thousand League Sword. With that, Damian had easily secured a brand new weapon that could amplify his power. As they were walking out of the impressive and grand workshop, someone had approached them in the busy and crowded streets, flanked by a contingent of armed guards. The personal maid of Lady Chelsea, Rebecca, politely and formally introduced herself to them. She relayed that the Grand Duchess wished to speak with Damian. It would be nice if he would be able to spare the lady a moment to talk. Of course, Damian had absolutely no reason to accept such a saucy invitation. However, Rebecca insisted that. The Grand Duchess holds far more cards than one might possibly expect. Maybe a simple conversation would do him some actual good. That Chelsea girl will probably try to simply win him over, with all kinds of different persuasion tactics. Since Damian has a few things that he wants to confirm for himself, he decided to simply play along with her. So Rebecca led the way, and they eventually arrived at a fancy and expensive restaurant that was personally run by the Grand Duchess herself. It is a high-end place that only accepts reservations from the nobles. Rebecca emphasized that this particular meeting is very important. Important enough for Lady Chelsea to clear out the entire place for the whole day, just so that they can talk in complete privacy. The Susi maid opened an ornate and grand gate and urged the young man to enter. The Grand Duchess is eagerly waiting for him inside. Admittedly, he was quite curious to know as to what kind of an offer this lady was going to make him to get him out of the entire picture for good. As soon as he had entered the private room, his senses were immediately assaulted by a hypnotic and alluring scent. Lady Chelsea poured herself a glass of fine and expensive wine, with a single, ornate hourglass sitting on the table before her. With a bewitching and enchanting smile, she invited Damian to sit with her. A single whiff of that pink, mysterious stuff in the air, and I know that some of you would have folded like a cheap lawn chair on the spot, even after noticing the complete sketchiness of this entire meeting. He sat his ass down and directly asked her what she really wants. Instead of immediately talking about her business right away, she asserted that they should share a meal together first, not one to waste any more of his precious time. He demanded that she lay her best offer down on the table right away. Since he had insisted, she finally relented. Lady Chelsea has only a single, simple request. Of course, that would be for Damian to step down as the family's main representative. He accused the lady of not having trust in her own champions, chances of being able to win against him. But she calmly and coolly explained that she has complete confidence with regard to Sir Guillaume being able to come out on top. It is just that she wants to save the man's precious strength for the real duel. With a powerful marquisate house, it would truly be quite troublesome if he were to get injured from some meaningless and petty duel, wouldn't it? For the sake of simply negotiating. Damian asked her what he would gain by accepting such a big request. Lady Chelsea simply answered that he could name his own price. Anything that he wants is now on the table. She only sees him as a countryside noble who would be happy with some money, fame, or other such materialistic and worldly stuff. This girl does not even bother trying to hide her arrogance and judgment. Still playing along with her, Damian argued that he could just get all of those things from the Duke himself. She quickly relented. That while that might look like a good route to go down on right now, is it not better to be in the good graces with the future Duke instead? Throughout their entire intense conversation, Chelsea's eyes kept darting down towards the ornate hourglass. She relayed her final offer. If Damian wants to take it, he should go and talk to the Duke about backing out of the duel right away. As soon as the last tiny grain of hourglass sand had fallen, the bewitching and alluring air in the room intensified, and she ordered the young man to finally step down as the family's official representative. Damian felt a strange wave of warmth and stimulation wash all over his body. Instead of falling prey to the blatant and obvious attempt at putting him under a spell, he definitely and completely refused her offer, expecting her sneaky and underhanded maneuver to work. Lady Chelsea was completely and utterly confused that her demand was being denied by a simple bumpkin noble. Damian enjoyed watching the spoiled and pampered brat squirm in her seat as she panicked at the allure. Since complete and utter failure, the moment he had entered the room, he had recognized the black magic that was used to induce false affection, wafting through the air. It is commonly used to manipulate a target at will. Thankfully, he had retained all of his black magic knowledge from his previous and past life. That enchantment incense is quite hard to miss when you know exactly what you are looking for. Based on the size of the room and the overall scent concentration, anyone would become a complete slave within an hour of simple exposure. Thanks to the powerful authority of greed, Damian had simply absorbed everything without being affected at all. Deciding to have a little bit of fun, he pressed the spoiled Duchess about her very odd reaction to his refusal. She stumbled awkwardly over her words. and she doubled down on giving him everything that he wanted. Done with his fun, Damian turned his back on her and walked away. He does not need anything from this pathetic little brat. She cannot possibly give him what he is truly seeking in the first place. Desperate to keep their little discussion open, she asked him what this thing he is fighting for truly is, considering everything that Damian has been through. The only thing that he desires is true happiness for his beloved family. His honest answer simply confused the bratty and spoiled Duchess. She simply cannot relate to someone who loves their own family. Finally, he warned her to get Guillaume Blackwing ready and primed for the upcoming pivotal duel. If he really wants to survive, that is. Pursing her lips, Lady Chelsea decided to take off all of the incentives, and she resorted to using direct threats instead. Since he values his own family so much, she completely flipped the script, and she alluded to doing something very unkind to Damian's family if he does not decide to play ball with her. She swore to send her people to absolutely crush the Hackson household, completely and totally erasing the insignificant family off of the map, before she could get every single word of her vile ultimatum out of her completely rotten mouth. Lady Chelsea felt a tight and powerful grip suffocating her own neck, nearly crushing her windpipe as her body slammed onto the table. Even in such a perilous and dangerous position, she still tried to act completely high and mighty. Insulted that a simple country bumpkin had dared to lay a hand on her, she furiously demanded to be released. But she had just made the stupid move of threatening a former death. Knight's family, hearing the loud commotion in the room, Lady Chelsea's own personal guards rushed right in. They swiftly and quickly drew their own weapons, ready to cut down the boy who had dared to endanger their Duchess. Damian controlled his boiling anger and tossed the filthy witch away. In the blink of an eye, he had grabbed a sharp knife from the table, took the guards completely by surprise, and he slit their throats in one fell swoop. The guards took a second to even notice that something was wrong, as the deep slits on their necks began to bleed profusely, as they panicked and clutched their now lethal and bloody wounds. Damian walked calmly towards the main exit. He had only sliced their carotids lightly. If they apply some kind of potion to the wounds in time, they should be able to survive. As for this complete waste of space, Chelsea Gold Pixie, nothing would please Damian more than severing her head, right here and now, but he will choose to restrain himself for now. Resorting to run-of-the-mill violence would be far too merciful, a true punishment for her utter stupidity. He would much rather be around to see how horrible things will surely get for her in the very near future, instead of becoming just an emotional executioner. While she was still trying to catch her breath and the guards slowly bled out, her maid, Rebecca, finally entered the room. She quickly and calmly attended to her boss, making sure that she was completely all right. This girl must be completely deaf. She did not hear all of the foreshadowing that Damian had just dropped. She's focused on getting her own bloody revenge instead. At the top of her lungs, she yelled the name Mustang Fury. Such a badass name belongs to this pale and doughy dumpling man. I was expecting an assassin or some shit. Lady Chelsea chewed out Mustang for what had just happened. She was promised that the allure scent would be completely immutable, but it did not work at all on Damian Hackson. Mustang reckoned that the kid must be one of those very few people with a natural and powerful resistance to black magic. The Grand Duchess has a zero-tolerance policy for pathetic excuses. She slapped the dog shit completely out of Mustang for putting her in such a humiliating and terrible position. As for Guillaume Blackwing, he was last seen at the local tavern, claiming that he needed to cool off after everything that had happened. Today, hearing that her chosen champion is getting drunk, the night before a very pivotal and important duel, exasperated Chelsea even more so. For one final and last time, she asked Mustang if their beast would be able to win against that Haxon kid. Of course, Mustang Fury vouched completely for Guillaume. That guy is Yulan's pride and joy. After all, there has never been another knight who is more gifted for black magic than that particular man. Mustang asked the lady for just a little bit more patience. Yulan is working very hard behind the scenes to give her the entire gold pixie dukedom. As usual, she threatened to kill Mustang and everyone in Yulan if they failed to deliver on their promise to her. This girl has no other moves, bro, while she was so blatantly discussing a collusion with a known heretical organization. Damian was listening to it all just up on the roof.